Free will and determinism are two ideas that people have been thinking about for a long time. They deal with the question of whether we really have control over our choices or if everything we do is caused by things outside of us. Let's take a closer look and try to understand these ideas in a simple way. Free will is the belief that we have the power to make our own choices. It means that when we make a decision, like what to eat for dinner or which path to take on a walk, we are in control. No one is forcing us, and nothing else is deciding for us. If you decide to have a sandwich instead of pizza, it's because you wanted to, not because something else made you do it. Free will also comes with responsibility. If we are free to make our own decisions, then we are responsible for the outcomes of those decisions. If someone makes a mistake or does something wrong, it's because they chose to, and they can be held accountable. Determinism, on the other hand, is the idea that every action, thought, or choice we make is caused by something else. It suggests that our decisions are not really free because they are shaped by things like our upbringing, our environment, or even how our brains work. For example, if you choose to eat pizza instead of a sandwich, a determinist might say that decision was influenced by the smell of the pizza, your mood, or a memory of enjoying pizza in the past. From this view, even though it feels like you are deciding, the choice was already set in motion by things you can't control. These two ideas seem to go against each other. If determinism is true, and all of our actions are caused by something else, how can we say we are free to choose? Let's imagine a person deciding whether to go for a run or stay at home. They might feel like they are free to choose either one. But a determinist would argue that the choice they make will depend on things like how tired they are, how much they like running, or even the weather outside. It might seem free, but the determinist believes the choice was already influenced by all those factors. People who believe in free will argue that we can still make choices, even if we are influenced by outside things. For example, someone who usually eats junk food might decide one day to start eating healthy. This might seem like a moment where free will is at work. They are making a choice to change their habits, even though it's not what they usually do. Supporters of free will see this as proof that people can rise above their circumstances and take control of their lives. Some thinkers try to find a middle ground between free will and determinism. They believe both ideas can be true at the same time. This is called compatibilism. According to this view, we can make choices, but those choices are still influenced by outside factors. For instance, if you decide to paint on your day off, that decision might be shaped by your love of art or the supplies you have at home. Even though those factors play a role, compatibilists say you are still making a free choice because it's something you wanted to do. Science also plays a part in this discussion. Studies of the brain have shown that sometimes our brains start preparing for actions before we are even aware of making a decision. For example, if you reach for a cup of coffee, your brain might send signals to your hand before you even realize you've decided to grab the cup. Some people think this means free will isn't real, that our brains are making the decisions for us. Others argue that just because the brain starts early, it doesn't mean we don't have control. They believe that conscious thought still plays an important role in deciding what we do. This debate is not just about ideas, it also affects real life. Think about the justice system. If determinism is true and people's actions are shaped by their environment, can we blame someone for doing something wrong? If they didn't really have a choice, is it fair to punish them? Some people say yes, because punishment or rehabilitation can still change future behavior. Even if the person wasn't fully in control of their actions, holding them accountable might prevent them from repeating the same mistakes. Free will also has practical effects on how we see ourselves. If you believe you have free will, you might feel more motivated to improve yourself or change bad habits. For example, you might think, I can choose to exercise more or spend less time on my phone. On the other hand, if you believe in determinism, you might focus more on understanding why you act the way you do. This can lead to greater compassion for yourself and others, as you see how much of life is shaped by things we don't control, like our childhoods or our surroundings. Everyday situations can help us think about this debate. Imagine choosing a career. Are you picking a job because it's something you truly love, or because of pressure from family and the opportunities available to you? Or think about someone trying to quit smoking. Are they relying on their free will to make that change? Or are they influenced by support from friends, stress levels, and how hard it is to break a habit? These examples show how free will and determinism might both play a role in the choices we make. The question of free will versus determinism matters because it changes how we think about ourselves and others. If you lean toward free will, you might see people as fully responsible for their actions. If you lean toward determinism, you might be more focused on understanding the factors that shape behavior and working to change them. Neither view has all the answers, and the truth might be somewhere in between. But thinking about this question can help us better understand the world and our place in it. Whether you believe in free will, determinism, or something in between, the debate challenges us to think deeply about who we are and how we make decisions. It encourages us to reflect on our actions and to approach life with more understanding and care. Relativity and absolutism are two ways of thinking about truth, morality, and how we understand the world. These ideas may seem simple at first, but they lead to big questions about how people make decisions, judge actions, and interact with others. Let's explore both perspectives in a straightforward way and see how they compare. Relativity is the belief that truth or right and wrong can depend on the situation, culture, or perspective. It suggests that there isn't always one single answer or rule that applies to everyone, everywhere, all the time. Instead, what is true or right can change depending on the context. For example, a certain gesture might be polite in one country but rude in another. A relativist would say that both views are valid within their own cultures. Relativity often comes up when people talk about morals and ethics. Imagine someone lying to protect a friend. In some situations, lying might seem wrong because honesty is important. But in other cases, like keeping a friend safe, lying might feel like the right thing to do. A relativist would argue that whether the lie is good or bad depends on the situation and the reason behind it. Absolutism, on the other hand, is the belief that certain truths or rules are universal and do not change, no matter the circumstances. Absolutists believe that some things are always right or always wrong, no matter where you are or what the situation is. For example, an absolutist might say that lying is always wrong, even if you're doing it to help someone. To them, truth is a clear and unchanging concept. This difference between relativity and absolutism can be seen in many areas of life. Take the law, for instance. An absolutist might believe that stealing is always wrong, no matter what. A relativist, however, might consider the reasons behind the act. If someone steals food because they're starving, a relativist might see the act as more understandable, even though stealing is usually not acceptable. The clash between these views often comes down to how people think about fairness and understanding. Absolutists value consistency and believe that having clear rules helps maintain order and justice. They worry that if rules are allowed to change too much, it could lead to confusion or unfair treatment. Relativists, on the other hand, focus on the idea that people live in different circumstances and have different beliefs. They think it's important to consider these differences when deciding what's fair or right. Let's look at some examples in everyday life. Imagine two parents raising their children. One parent believes that bedtime should always be at 8 p.m., no exceptions. This parent follows an absolutist approach, thinking that rules are important and should be the same every day. The other parent believes bedtime can change depending on the situation. Maybe it's okay to stay up late on a holiday or a special occasion. This parent takes a more relativist view, adjusting the rules to fit the moment. Another example can be seen in how people view cultural traditions. An absolutist might believe that their way of celebrating a holiday is the correct way and should stay the same no matter what. A relativist might be more open to different traditions, thinking that every culture has its own valid way of celebrating, and there's no single right way to do it. Science can also highlight the difference between relativity and absolutism. In physics, Albert Einstein's theory of relativity showed that time and space are not fixed, but can change depending on factors like speed and gravity. This idea was a big shift from the absolutist view that time and space are the same everywhere in the universe. Relativity in science doesn't mean anything goes, but it does show that things can depend on context. In morality and ethics, the debate gets even more personal. Absolutists might point to rules or beliefs from religion or philosophy as proof that there are clear, unchanging truths about how people should live. They might say that killing is always wrong, no matter what. Relativists, however, might bring up situations like self-defense or war, where killing might be seen as justified. For relativists, what matters most is understanding the specific situation and the reasons behind it. One of the challenges with relativism is that it can sometimes seem like it allows for anything. If what's right depends on the situation, how do you draw the line? For example, if one culture believes in harming others for certain rituals, is that acceptable just because it's their tradition? Relativists might respond by saying that while understanding context is important, some actions, like harming others, might still be considered wrong across cultures. Absolutism has its own challenges too. A rigid belief in unchanging rules can sometimes lead to unfair outcomes. Imagine a rule that says every student who turns in homework late gets a 0, no exceptions. This might seem fair because it treats everyone the same. But what if a student was late because of a family emergency? In that case, an absolutist approach might feel harsh or unfair, while a relativist approach could allow for more understanding. The tension between relativity and absolutism shows up in how people handle disagreements. Relativists are often more open to seeing things from another person's point of view, even if they don't agree. Absolutists might struggle more with this, since they see their rules or beliefs as universal. On the flip side, absolutists might feel more confident in their decisions, while relativists might find it harder to make firm judgments when there are so many factors to consider. This debate also affects how we see progress and change. Absolutists might resist changes to long-standing traditions or values, believing that some things should stay the same no matter what. Relativists, however, are more likely to welcome change, seeing it as a natural part of adapting to new circumstances and ideas. The truth is, most people don't fully fall into one camp or the other. In some situations, they might lean toward absolutism, like when they believe in fairness or justice that applies to everyone. In other cases, they might lean toward relativity, especially when they want to understand someone else's perspective or make exceptions for special situations. Relativity and absolutism both have strengths and weaknesses. Relativity teaches us to be flexible, to consider context, and to understand the differences in people's experiences. Absolutism reminds us of the importance of clear rules and shared values that give people a sense of fairness and consistency. At the end of the day, the debate between relativity and absolutism isn't about choosing one side or the other. It's about finding a balance. Sometimes, rules and truths need to be firm to create order and fairness. Other times, they need to be flexible to account for the complexities of life. By thinking about both perspectives, we can better understand ourselves and the world around us. The idea of appearance versus reality has always been a big question for people. It asks whether what we see or experience is the same as what's really true. Sometimes things seem one way, but underneath they are something very different. This can apply to objects, people, or even situations. Let's explore this idea in simple terms. When we talk about appearance, we mean how something looks or seems on the surface. Reality, on the other hand, is about the truth beneath that surface. These two things don't always match. For example, imagine you're looking at a dessert that looks delicious. It's beautifully decorated, and the colors make your mouth water. But when you take a bite, you realize it doesn't taste good at all. The appearance promised one thing, but the reality was very different. This idea doesn't just apply to objects. It also applies to people. Think about someone you meet who seems very friendly and kind. At first, you might think they're a great person to know, but over time, you might notice that their actions don't match their words. They might be pretending to be nice for their own reasons. This is another example of how appearance and reality don't always line up. Sometimes we also misjudge situations because we focus too much on appearance. Imagine you see a person sitting alone at a party. You might assume they're lonely or don't want to be there, but in reality, they might be perfectly happy enjoying some quiet time, or they might just be taking a break. Our first impressions often come from what we see, but they aren't always accurate. This difference between how things seem and how they are has been a major theme in stories, art, and philosophy. In literature, many famous works explore this idea. Think about fairy tales where something looks magical or safe but turns out to be dangerous, like a witch disguised as a kind old woman. These stories remind us to look beyond appearances and question what's really true. Philosophy has also spent a lot of time on this topic. Plato, a famous philosopher, told a story about a cave. In the story, people live in a cave and only see shadows on the wall. They think the shadows are reality because it's all they know. But if one person leaves the cave and sees the outside world, they realize the shadows were just appearances, and the real world is much bigger and more complex. This story shows how people can mistake appearances for reality when they don't have the full picture. Even science deals with this question. At a glance, the Earth looks flat when you stand on it, but we know it's round. The sun seems to move across the sky, but in reality, the Earth is moving. These are examples of how what we see can be very different from what is true when we dig deeper and learn more. The difference between appearance and reality is also important in how we judge others. People often try to present themselves in a certain way, especially on social media. Someone might post pictures that make their life look perfect, but the reality could be very different. They might be dealing with stress, sadness, or other struggles that don't show in their photos. This is why it's important not to compare yourself too much to what you see online. It's easy to forget that what people show is just one part of their reality. Appearance versus reality also affects trust. If someone appears honest but isn't, it can cause problems in relationships. Imagine a person who always says the right things to make you believe they care about you, but later, you realize their actions don't match their words. This can hurt because you trusted what you saw on the surface without knowing the truth beneath it. Another example is advertising. Companies often try to make their products look better than they are. A fast food burger might look huge and perfect in a commercial, but when you order it, the real burger might be much smaller and messier. This is a simple but clear case of appearance not matching reality. Why do we focus so much on appearance? It's partly because our senses are designed to take in what's on the surface. What we see, hear, and feel is immediate and easy to process. It takes more time and effort to figure out what's really true. For example, understanding someone's personality takes longer than noticing how they dress. This is why it's so common for people to form quick judgments based on appearance. But while appearance can sometimes be misleading, it's also not always wrong. Many times, what we see does match reality. If someone smiles and acts kindly toward you, there's a good chance they are kind. If the weather looks cloudy and gray, it's probably going to rain. The key is not to rely only on appearances, but to dig deeper when needed. This idea also teaches us to be patient and observant. Instead of jumping to conclusions based on how things seem, we can take the time to ask questions and gather more information. For example, if someone seems upset, instead of assuming they're angry with you, you can ask if everything is okay. By doing this, you might find out they're just having a tough day, and it has nothing to do with you. Appearance versus reality is also about self-awareness. Sometimes we try to appear a certain way to others, even if it doesn't match how we feel inside. For example, you might pretend to be confident at a job interview, even if you're nervous. This can be helpful in some situations, but it's also important to be honest with yourself about who you are and how you feel. In the end, the idea of appearance versus reality reminds us to look beyond the surface. It teaches us to question what we see, think carefully before judging, and try to understand the truth in every situation. Whether it's a person, a situation, or something we experience, there's often more going on than what we notice at first. By being curious and thoughtful, we can get closer to understanding the reality beneath the appearance. The problem of evil is one of the oldest and most difficult questions people have asked. It's about the idea of why bad things happen in a world that many believe is created and ruled by a good and powerful God. If God is all-loving and all-powerful, why does evil exist? This question has puzzled thinkers, believers, and skeptics for centuries. Let's look at it in simple terms and see why it's such a tough question. Imagine a world where everything is perfect. There is no suffering, no pain, and no bad things. If God is good and has the power to make anything happen, it makes sense to think God would create a world like this. But when we look around, we see something very different. People get sick, natural disasters destroy homes, and sometimes people hurt each other on purpose. This is where the problem of evil comes in. How can these things exist if God is both loving and powerful? To understand this question better, we need to think about two kinds of evil. The first kind is called moral evil. This is the kind of evil that comes from people's actions. For example, when someone lies, steals, or hurts someone else, that's moral evil. It happens because people make choices that harm others. The second kind is called natural evil. This includes things like earthquakes, floods, and diseases. These are not caused by people, but by nature. Some people try to explain the problem of evil by saying that free will is part of the answer. They believe God gave people the ability to choose what they want to do. This freedom is important because it allows us to love, create, and do good things. But it also means we can choose to do bad things. If God took away our ability to make bad choices, we wouldn't really be free. For example, if a person could only ever tell the truth, they wouldn't be choosing to be honest. It would be forced on them. Supporters of this idea believe free will is worth the risk of people sometimes choosing to do wrong. But free will doesn't explain everything. What about natural evil? A hurricane isn't a choice, and cancer isn't the result of someone deciding to do harm. Some people explain natural evil by saying it is part of how the world works. Natural disasters, for example, are caused by the movement of the Earth's crust, or the weather systems that keep our planet alive. Diseases can be explained by biology. While these things can cause suffering, they are also part of what makes the world function. Without the processes that create life, there wouldn't be life at all. Others say that evil and suffering are tests or lessons. They believe that going through hard times helps people grow stronger, kinder, or more understanding. For example, someone who survives a difficult illness might become more compassionate toward others who are sick. This explanation suggests that suffering has a purpose, even if we don't always understand it. However, this can be a hard idea to accept, especially in cases of extreme suffering, like the death of a child or a large-scale disaster. Some people argue that we simply don't understand God's plan. They believe God might have reasons for allowing evil that are beyond what we can know. This is sometimes called the greater good defense. It's like a puzzle where we can only see a few pieces at a time, but God sees the whole picture. While this explanation can be comforting to some, it can feel unsatisfying to others because it doesn't provide a clear answer. On the other side, some people see the existence of evil as proof that God either doesn't exist or isn't as powerful or loving as people believe. They argue that if God wanted to, God could stop all suffering. Since suffering exists, they conclude that a good and all-powerful God must not exist. This is one of the main arguments used by atheists, or people who don't believe in God. Others take a middle view. They believe in God, but think that God is not involved in every little detail of life. This idea is sometimes called deism. It suggests that God created the world, but lets it run on its own, like a clock that was wound up and left to tick. In this view, God doesn't interfere to stop every act of evil or every disaster. The problem of evil isn't just about ideas, it's about how we live our lives and deal with suffering. When someone goes through pain, they often ask, "Why did this happen to me?" This question is deeply personal, and people have different ways of finding comfort. Some turn to their faith, believing that God is with them even in their hardest moments. Others find meaning by helping others, creating good out of bad situations. Think about someone who has lost their home in a natural disaster. They might wonder why such a terrible thing happened. If they believe in God, they might pray for strength and guidance. If they don't believe, they might focus on rebuilding and helping others in their community. Both paths show how people try to make sense of suffering in their own ways. Another way people deal with the problem of evil is by focusing on human action. Instead of asking why evil exists, they ask what they can do about it. For example, when people see hunger or homelessness, they might decide to volunteer or donate to help others. This approach doesn't solve the problem of why suffering exists, but it focuses on making the world a better place despite it. In the end, the problem of evil doesn't have a simple answer. It's a question that has been debated for thousands of years and will likely continue to be debated for many more. Some people find answers in their faith, believing that God has a plan even if they don't understand it. Others find answers in science or philosophy, looking for natural explanations for why things happen. And some simply accept that life includes both good and bad and focus on making the most of it. The problem of evil challenges us to think deeply about the world, our beliefs, and how we respond to suffering. It's a reminder that life is complex and that there are no easy answers. But it also invites us to show kindness, compassion, and courage in the face of life's hardest questions. The idea of being and nothingness is about two big questions. What does it mean to exist, and what does it mean to not exist? These questions might sound simple, but they are some of the hardest to answer. Philosophers, writers, and thinkers have spent centuries trying to understand them. Let's take a look at these ideas in a way that makes sense without getting too complicated. Being is about existence. It's the state of something being real, present, or alive. For example, a tree, a person, or even an idea like love can all be. When we say something is, we're talking about its being. We experience being every day without really thinking about it. When you see the sky, hear music, or feel the warmth of the sun, you are experiencing things that exist. Nothingness, on the other hand, is the absence of being. It's the state where something does not exist. Imagine an empty room. It has no people, no furniture, no sound, just emptiness. Now take that idea further and think of absolute nothingness, where there's not even air, space, or time. That's a harder idea to grasp because our minds are so used to thinking about things that exist. Nothingness feels strange because it's the complete opposite of everything we know. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre wrote a lot about being and nothingness. He believed that nothingness is a big part of what it means to be human. He said that humans are not just things that exist, like rocks or trees. We have the ability to think about what we are, what we want to be, and what we are not. This means we are always aware of nothingness, even if we don't realize it. Let's use an example to explain this. Imagine you are sitting in a cafe, waiting for a friend. You look around and you see people talking, drinking coffee, and reading. These are all examples of being. They are things that exist in the moment. But then you notice that your friend is not there yet. Their absence is an example of nothingness. You are aware of them not being there, and that awareness changes how you feel. You might feel disappointed, annoyed, or worried, even though nothingness isn't something you can see or touch. Sartre also believed that humans are different from other things because we can imagine what doesn't exist. For example, if you have a job you don't like, you can imagine a different life where you do something else. That imagined life doesn't exist. It's a kind of nothingness. But thinking about it might inspire you to make changes. Sartre thought this ability to imagine and create meaning is what makes life so special. We don't just accept the world as it is, we think about how it could be. This brings us to another big idea, freedom. Sartre believed that because we are aware of being and nothingness, we are free to make choices. For example, if you feel stuck in a routine, you might decide to try something new, like taking up a hobby or traveling. That choice is a way of creating meaning in your life. But freedom can also feel scary. If we are free to choose, it means we are also responsible for the choices we make. That responsibility can feel heavy because there's no one else to blame if things don't go the way we hoped. The idea of nothingness can also help us understand loss. When someone we love passes away, their absence becomes a kind of nothingness in our lives. We can feel the space where they used to be, even though they are no longer there. This kind of nothingness can be painful, but it can also remind us of how much that person meant to us. It shows how being and nothingness are always connected. They shape each other in ways we might not always notice. Another way to think about being and nothingness is through creativity. When an artist starts with a blank canvas, it's a kind of nothingness. There's nothing there yet. But as they add paint, they bring something into being. The same thing happens when a writer starts with an empty page, or a musician begins with silence. Creativity is a way of turning nothingness into something meaningful. The idea of nothingness also raises questions about life and death. What happens when we die? Do we go into nothingness, or is there something else? Different people have different answers to this question, depending on their beliefs or experiences. Some think of death as a kind of return to nothingness, while others believe in an afterlife or some form of continued existence. These questions might not have clear answers, but thinking about them can help us appreciate life more fully. In everyday life, being and nothingness show up in small ways too. Think about a plan you were excited about that didn't happen, like a canceled trip or a missed opportunity. The nothingness of what could have been can make you feel sad or frustrated, but it can also remind you to make the most of the plans that do work out. It's a way of noticing how life is always a mix of being and nothingness, presence and absence, hope and loss. Being and nothingness are not just abstract ideas. They are part of how we experience the world every day. We live in a world full of things that exist, but we are also always aware of what is missing, what could be, and what might never be. This awareness gives life its depth and meaning. It's what makes us human. We are not just creatures who exist. We are creatures who think about existence and imagine what lies beyond it. That ability to think and imagine is both a gift and a challenge, one that shapes everything we do. Wave-particle duality is one of the most fascinating ideas in physics. It's the idea that light and matter can behave like both particles and waves, depending on how we observe them. At first, this might sound confusing or even impossible, but it's a real phenomenon that scientists have studied for over a century. Let's break it down in simple terms to understand how it works and why it's important. First, let's think about waves. Waves are all around us. Imagine ripples on a pond when you throw a stone into the water. Those ripples spread out, moving energy through the water. Waves can also travel through the air, like sound waves, or through space, like light waves. A wave isn't located in just one place. It spreads out over an area. Now let's think about particles. Particles are tiny bits of matter, like grains of sand or drops of water. They are solid and exist in one place at a time. If you throw a ball, it follows a clear path from one spot to another. This is very different from how waves behave. So, how can something act like both a wave and a particle? That's where the idea of wave-particle duality comes in. Scientists first discovered this when they studied light. For a long time, people thought light was just a wave. It travels through space and can bend around corners like water flowing around a rock. But in the early 20th century, scientists started to notice something strange. A scientist named Max Planck discovered that light energy seemed to come in tiny packets, which we now call photons. Albert Einstein built on this idea, showing that light behaves like particles in certain situations. For example, when light hits a metal surface, it can knock electrons out of the metal. This is called the photoelectric effect, and it only makes sense if light is made of particles. But light doesn't stop acting like a wave. If you shine light through two small slits, the light waves overlap and create a pattern of bright and dark areas on a screen. This pattern is called interference, and it only happens if light is acting like a wave. So, depending on how you test it, light can act like a wave or a particle. It's not one or the other, it's both. Scientists later found that this isn't just true for light. Matter, like electrons, also shows wave-particle duality. For example, if you shoot electrons through two slits, they create the same kind of interference pattern as light waves. This was shocking because people usually think of electrons as tiny particles, but in these experiments they act like waves. Here's something even stranger. The way you observe the particles changes how they behave. If you set up a detector to see which slit an electron goes through, the electron acts like a particle, going through one slit or the other. But if you don't use a detector, the electron acts like a wave, going through both slits at once and creating the interference pattern. This means the act of observing changes what the electron does. This idea is hard to wrap your head around. How can something be a wave and a particle at the same time? The truth is, scientists don't fully understand why this happens. What we do know is that this dual nature is built into the rules of quantum mechanics, which is the science of very small things like atoms and particles. Wave-particle duality has some big implications. For one, it changes how we think about reality. In the everyday world, things are either here or there, solid or not. But in the quantum world, particles can exist in a kind of in-between state. They aren't just particles or waves, they're something more complicated. This duality also helps explain how things like atoms and molecules work. Electrons, for example, don't orbit the nucleus of an atom like tiny planets around the sun. Instead, they exist in clouds around the nucleus, where they behave more like waves. This wave-like behavior helps explain why atoms are stable and why they form the bonds that make up everything around us. Wave-particle duality has practical uses too. Technologies like lasers, solar panels, and even the devices used in medical imaging rely on our understanding of light's wave-particle nature. Quantum mechanics, which is based on ideas like wave-particle duality, is also the foundation of modern computers and upcoming technologies like quantum computing. One way to think about wave-particle duality is to imagine a person wearing two hats. Sometimes they wear one hat, and sometimes they wear the other, depending on what they're doing. Light and particles are like that. They wear their wave or particle hat depending on how we observe them. Even though wave-particle duality might seem strange, it's a real part of the natural world. It shows us that the universe doesn't always follow the rules we expect. Instead, it has its own set of rules, which we are still trying to understand. This idea reminds us to keep asking questions and to stay open to new possibilities, even when they challenge what we think we know. Schrödinger's cat is a thought experiment in quantum physics that has puzzled and fascinated people for decades. It's a strange and mind-bending idea that mixes science, logic, and imagination to explore how we understand the behavior of very tiny particles. Let's break it down in a simple way so it's easy to follow. First, we need to know a little about quantum mechanics, which is the branch of science that deals with things like atoms and particles. These tiny particles don't behave like the things we see every day. They can do surprising things, like being in two places at once, or acting like both a particle and a wave. One of the strangest ideas in quantum mechanics is something called superposition. Superposition means that a particle can exist in multiple states at the same time until someone observes or measures it. For example, an electron might spin in two different directions at once, or a photon of light might go through two different paths at the same time. Once it is observed, however, it chooses one state and behaves as if it was always in that state. This might sound confusing, but it's been proven by experiments, even though it doesn't match how we experience the world. Now let's bring in the cat. In 1935, a physicist named Erwin Schrödinger created this thought experiment to show just how strange quantum mechanics can be. He imagined putting a cat in a sealed box along with a few special items: a radioactive atom, a Geiger counter, a device that detects radiation, a vial of poison, and a mechanism that breaks the vial if the Geiger counter detects radiation. Here's how it works. The radioactive atom has a 50% chance of decaying, breaking apart, within a certain time, and a 50% chance of not decaying. If the atom decays, it triggers the Geiger counter, which activates the mechanism to break the vial, releasing the poison and killing the cat. If the atom does not decay, the vial stays intact and the cat stays alive. Now comes the strange part. According to quantum mechanics, until you open the box and look inside, the radioactive atom exists in a superposition of states. It has both decayed and not decayed at the same time. Because the cat's life depends on the state of the atom, the cat is also in a superposition. It is both alive and dead at the same time until you observe it. When you open the box, the superposition ends. The atom chooses one state, decayed or not decayed, and the cat becomes either fully alive or fully dead. This idea of the cat being both alive and dead at once is where the paradox lies. It doesn't match how we think about everyday things, but it's how particles behave in the quantum world. Schrödinger's cat isn't meant to be taken literally. It's a thought experiment designed to highlight the weirdness of quantum mechanics. Schrödinger himself didn't think a cat could actually be in two states at once. He created the scenario to show how strange it is to apply quantum rules to larger objects, like a cat, which we think of as either alive or dead, never both. The experiment raises big questions about how we observe and understand reality. In quantum mechanics, the act of observing something seems to change what's happening. This is very different from the world we know, where looking at a tree doesn't make it grow or shrink. But in the quantum world, observing a particle can make it decide on a state, as if the observation itself has power. Schrödinger's cat also connects to a bigger question in science and philosophy. What is reality before we observe it? Is the cat truly in two states at once, or is it in one state and we just don't know which one? Different interpretations of quantum mechanics try to answer this, but there's no single answer that everyone agrees on. One interpretation is called the Copenhagen interpretation. It suggests that the cat really is in a superposition of alive and dead until someone observes it. At that moment, the superposition collapses and the cat becomes either alive or dead. Another interpretation is called the many worlds theory. This idea says that when the box is opened, the universe splits into two versions, one where the cat is alive and another where the cat is dead. In this view, both outcomes are real, but they exist in separate, parallel universes that we can't see or interact with. Schrödinger's cat isn't just a fun idea for scientists to think about. It has real-world connections. Quantum mechanics helps explain how things like computers, smartphones, and even medical imaging machines work. It's the foundation for technologies that rely on the behavior of particles at a very small scale. Schrödinger's cat shows us the kinds of puzzles scientists deal with when they study the quantum world. In everyday life, we don't see superpositions because quantum effects are usually too small to notice. For bigger objects, like cats or people, these effects seem to disappear, and things behave in predictable ways. But at the smallest levels of the universe, particles don't follow the same rules, which is why quantum mechanics feels so strange. The thought experiment also teaches us something about curiosity and the limits of knowledge. Until you open the box, you don't know the cat's state. This reflects how much of science and life depends on observing, questioning, and testing. Even if the answers are surprising or don't match what we expect, asking questions helps us learn more about the world. Schrödinger's cat reminds us that reality can be more complicated than it seems. It challenges us to think beyond what we see and consider the deeper, often hidden ways that the universe works. By exploring these strange ideas, scientists and thinkers push the boundaries of what we know and open up new possibilities for understanding the world around us. The debate between the Big Bang theory and the steady-state theory is one of the most fascinating in the history of science. It's about how the universe began, or if it even had a beginning. Both ideas aim to explain how the universe works, but they take very different approaches. Let's break it down in simple terms. The Big Bang theory is the idea that the universe started as a single point, often called a singularity, and has been expanding ever since. Imagine blowing up a balloon. At first, the balloon is small, but as you blow air into it, it gets bigger. The universe, according to the Big Bang theory, works in a similar way. A long time ago, about 13.8 billion years, everything we see today was packed into a tiny, incredibly dense and hot space. Then, in an instant, it began to expand. As the universe expanded, it cooled down. Tiny particles formed, and over time, they came together to make atoms. These atoms eventually clumped into stars, galaxies, and everything else we see in the universe today. This theory explains a lot about the universe, like why galaxies seem to be moving away from us. It's not that they're traveling through space. Space itself is expanding, carrying the galaxies with it. The steady-state theory, on the other hand, suggests something very different. This idea says the universe has no beginning or end. It has always existed in the same state. In this theory, as the universe expands, new matter is created to fill the gaps. This keeps the overall density of the universe the same, even though it's getting bigger. Imagine a loaf of bread rising in the oven. As it expands, tiny bits of dough could appear to keep the bread looking the same everywhere. In the steady-state theory, the universe is like that loaf, always expanding but never changing in its overall appearance. At first glance, both ideas might seem possible. The universe is expanding, and both theories account for this. So how do we know which one is correct? Scientists use evidence to figure it out. One piece of evidence that supports the Big Bang theory is something called the cosmic microwave background, CMB. This is a faint glow of radiation that fills the entire universe. It's like a snapshot of what the universe looked like when it was very young, just a few 100,000 years after the Big Bang. The CMB is a kind of leftover heat from the early universe, and it matches exactly what the Big Bang theory predicts. The steady-state theory, however, doesn't explain the CMB. Another clue comes from the way galaxies are distributed in the universe. The Big Bang theory predicts that the universe should look different at different times in its history. When we look far into space, we're also looking back in time. What we see matches the idea that the universe was once very different, with young galaxies forming in a smaller, denser space. The steady-state theory, which says the universe is unchanging over time, can't explain this. The discovery of the Big Bang theory wasn't sudden. It was built on years of observation and research. In the 1920s, a scientist named Edwin Hubble made a key discovery. He found that galaxies are moving away from us, and the farther away they are, the faster they're moving. This showed that the universe is expanding. It was the first big clue that the universe might have started from a single point. Later, in the 1960s, scientists discovered the cosmic microwave background. This was a huge breakthrough because it provided strong evidence that the universe had a hot, dense beginning. Since then, more discoveries, like the way elements like hydrogen and helium formed, have supported the Big Bang theory. The steady-state theory had its supporters too. It was appealing to some scientists because it avoided the question of how the universe began. If the universe has always been the same, there's no need to explain a starting point. For a while, it seemed like a simple and elegant solution. But as more evidence piled up, it became clear that the Big Bang theory was a better fit for the facts. The debate between these two ideas isn't just about science. It also touches on big philosophical questions. The Big Bang theory suggests that the universe had a beginning. This raises questions like, what caused it to start? Was there something before the Big Bang? These are questions that science can't fully answer yet, and they leave room for wonder and imagination. The steady-state theory, by contrast, avoids these questions. If the universe has always been the same, there's no need to ask what came before. This can be comforting to some people because it avoids the mystery of a starting point. But it also leaves us with fewer ways to explain how the universe we see today came to be. Even though the Big Bang theory is now widely accepted, science is always open to new ideas and evidence. For example, scientists are still trying to understand what caused the Big Bang. Some theories suggest that our universe might be part of a larger multiverse, with many universes existing side by side. Others explore the possibility that the universe cycles through periods of expansion and contraction. These ideas are exciting, but they're still being studied and debated. In the end, the debate between the Big Bang theory and the steady-state theory is a great example of how science works. Scientists start with questions and ideas, then test them against evidence. Theories that match the evidence survive, while others are set aside. This process helps us get closer to understanding the universe and our place in it. The Big Bang theory and the steady-state theory both tried to explain the same mystery, how the universe works. But the evidence, like the cosmic microwave background and the way galaxies are distributed, has shown us that the universe likely had a beginning. Even so, the story of how the universe began is still unfolding, and there's always more to discover. By asking questions, testing ideas, and being open to new evidence, science continues to deepen our understanding of the cosmos. The idea of time's arrow versus reversible physics is about how time works and why it seems to flow in one direction. It's a question that has fascinated scientists and philosophers for a long time. On one hand, Our everyday experience tells us that time moves forward. This is what's called time's arrow. On the other hand, the laws of physics suggest that time doesn't have to move in only one direction. This is the puzzle we'll explore. When we talk about time's arrow, we're describing the fact that time appears to have a direction. Things happen in order. The past leads to the present, and the present leads to the future. For example, you can break an egg, but you can't unbreak it. You can watch smoke rise from a fire, but it doesn't flow back into the wood. Time seems to move forward, and this is how we experience the world. Reversible physics, on the other hand, comes from the laws of science that describe how particles and forces behave. Many of these laws don't care about the direction of time. For example, if you watch a video of two billiard balls colliding and then play it backward, the motion still makes sense. The equations that describe how the balls move work the same forward or backward in time. This is called time reversal symmetry. So, here's the big question. If the laws of physics don't force time to move in one direction, why does time's arrow exist in our daily lives? Why do we remember the past but not the future? Why can we mix milk into coffee but not unmix it? The answer lies in something called entropy. Entropy is a measure of disorder or randomness in a system. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that in a closed system, entropy tends to increase over time. In simple terms, things naturally move from order to disorder. Imagine you have a box full of marbles, half red and half blue, neatly separated. If you shake the box, the marbles will mix together. But no matter how much you shake, they won't go back to being perfectly separated. This increase in disorder is what gives time its arrow. Entropy helps explain why certain processes seem irreversible. When you break an egg, you increase the disorder of its structure, and it's nearly impossible to put it back together exactly as it was. When smoke leaves a fire, it spreads out into the air, increasing its randomness. These changes in entropy give us a clear sense of past and future. But if entropy explains time's arrow, why do the laws of physics still work the same way forward and backward? The answer is that while individual particles obey time-reversible rules, large systems of particles, like eggs, smoke, or even galaxies, tend to follow the arrow of time because of how entropy works on a bigger scale. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine dropping a glass of water. It shatters into pieces, and the water spills everywhere. The process of breaking the glass increases entropy, which makes it very unlikely to see the glass come back together on its own. But if you could zoom in on each particle of glass and water, you'd see that the underlying physics allows for time reversal. The particles themselves don't care which way time flows. It's only when you look at the whole system that you notice time's arrow. Scientists have also explored how time's arrow relates to the universe as a whole. The Big Bang Theory tells us that the universe started in a state of very low entropy, a highly ordered state. Over billions of years, entropy has increased as the universe has expanded. This increase in entropy might explain why time flows in one direction. The universe is constantly moving from order to disorder. But what about the future? Some scientists wonder if the universe might one day reach a state of maximum entropy, where everything is completely disordered and nothing changes anymore. This state is sometimes called heat death. If it happens, time's arrow might lose its meaning because there would be no difference between past, present, and future. There are also ideas about whether time's arrow could be reversed under certain conditions. For example, in some theories about black holes and quantum physics, time might behave in strange ways. Some scientists even speculate about parallel universes where time flows backward. These ideas are exciting, but they're still being studied and debated. The debate between time's arrow and reversible physics isn't just about science. It also touches on how we experience life. Our memories, for example, are like markers of the past. We remember what happened yesterday, but we don't know what will happen tomorrow. This is tied to the increase of entropy. Our brains process and store information as the world becomes more disordered. Even things like aging follow time's arrow, as our bodies undergo irreversible changes over time. Despite the clear direction of time in our daily lives, it's fascinating to think about how the underlying rules of the universe don't require it. The clash between time's arrow and reversible physics reminds us that the way we experience the world isn't always the full story. Beneath the surface, the universe is full of mysteries waiting to be explored. In the end, time's arrow and reversible physics offer two views of time. One is based on how we live and see the world, with its clear flow from past to future. The other is rooted in the fundamental rules of nature, where time can move in any direction. Together, they show us how complex and surprising the universe can be. By studying these ideas, scientists continue to learn more about the nature of time and how it shapes everything around us. The idea of the multiverse is one of the most fascinating and mind-bending concepts in science and philosophy. It's the idea that our universe, the one we live in, might not be the only one. Instead, there could be many other universes, each with its own set of rules, events, and possibilities. These universes together make up what's called the multiverse. At first, the idea of a multiverse might sound like something out of science fiction, but it's also a serious scientific concept supported by some of the most advanced theories in physics. Let's explore what the multiverse is, why scientists think it might exist, and what it could mean for how we understand reality. To start, imagine our universe. It's vast, filled with galaxies, stars, and planets, all existing within space and time. But what if this universe is just one bubble in a much larger collection of bubbles? Each bubble would be its own universe, separate from ours. This is one way to picture the multiverse. There are several different ideas about how the multiverse might work. One comes from the Big Bang Theory, which explains how our universe began. According to this theory, the universe started as a tiny, incredibly dense point and has been expanding ever since. Some versions of the theory suggest that this expansion might happen over and over again, creating new universes each time. This process is sometimes called eternal inflation, and it could mean that new universes are constantly being created, each separate from the others. Another idea comes from quantum mechanics, the branch of physics that deals with very tiny particles. In quantum mechanics, particles can exist in multiple states at the same time, a concept known as superposition. When you observe a particle, it chooses one state. Some scientists wonder if this means the universe splits into different versions for each possible outcome. For example, if you flip a coin, one universe might exist where it lands heads and another where it lands tails. This is called the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. The multiverse also appears in theories about string theory, which is an attempt to explain how all the forces and particles in the universe fit together. String theory suggests that there could be extra dimensions beyond the 3 dimensions of space and one of time that we experience. These extra dimensions might lead to the existence of other universes with entirely different physical laws. If the multiverse exists, it raises some mind-blowing possibilities. For one, it means that there could be universes where things are completely different from what we know. In some universes, gravity might be stronger or weaker, or stars might not exist at all. There could even be universes where life evolved in ways we can't imagine, or where the constants of nature, like the speed of light, are different. The multiverse might also help answer some big questions about our own universe. For example, scientists have often wondered why the laws of physics in our universe are just right to allow life to exist. If certain numbers, like the strength of gravity, were slightly different, stars and planets might never have formed, and life as we know it couldn't exist. This is called the fine-tuning problem. The multiverse offers one possible explanation. If there are countless universes with different laws, it's not surprising that we happen to live in one where everything works for life. After all, we couldn't exist to ask the question if the conditions weren't right. But the idea of a multiverse also comes with challenges. One big question is whether we can ever prove it exists. By definition, other universes in the multiverse would be separate from ours, meaning we might not be able to see or measure them. Without direct evidence, the multiverse remains a hypothesis, a fascinating one, but not something we can confirm yet. Still, scientists are trying to find clues. One way they're doing this is by studying the cosmic microwave background, the faint glow left over from the Big Bang. If our universe has bumped into other universes in the past, those collisions might leave marks on the CMB that we could detect. So far, no clear evidence of this has been found, but the search continues. The multiverse also raises philosophical questions. If there are countless universes, what does that mean for our place in the cosmos? Are we just one tiny part of a much larger picture? And if there are versions of ourselves in other universes, what does that mean for our sense of identity and free will? These questions don't have easy answers, but they show how the idea of a multiverse challenges us to think in new ways about reality. Another question is about whether the multiverse has a beginning or an end. If universes are constantly being created, does that mean the multiverse is infinite? And if it is infinite, does that mean every possible version of events must happen somewhere? These ideas are hard to grasp, but they remind us how much we still have to learn about the nature of existence. The multiverse is more than just an abstract idea. It's a way to explore some of the biggest mysteries in science. By thinking about other universes, scientists are pushing the boundaries of what we know about space, time, and reality itself. Even if we never find direct evidence of the multiverse, studying it helps us better understand our own universe and our place in it. Whether or not the multiverse exists, the idea sparks curiosity and wonder. It reminds us that the universe we see might be just one part of a much larger and more complex reality. By asking questions and exploring possibilities, we continue to expand our understanding of the cosmos and our place in it. And that, in itself, is one of the most exciting things about science. The debate between individualism and collectivism is about how people see their role in society and how they balance personal freedom with the needs of the group. These two ideas shape cultures, communities, and even personal relationships in different ways. Let's break it down simply to understand what these concepts mean and how they affect our daily lives. Individualism is the idea that the individual is the most important. In individualist cultures, people focus on personal goals, choices, and achievements. The belief is that everyone should have the freedom to follow their own path and make their own decisions. This idea values independence and self-reliance. For example, in an individualist society, someone might prioritize their career goals over staying close to their family. They might move to a new city for a better job because their personal success is seen as more important than staying where they grew up. Collectivism, on the other hand, is the belief that the group is more important than the individual. In collectivist cultures, people focus on the needs of their family, community, or society as a whole. The belief is that by working together and supporting each other, the group becomes stronger. In a collectivist society, someone might stay in their hometown to help take care of aging parents or support the family business, even if they have personal dreams of moving elsewhere. Both of these ideas have their strengths and weaknesses, and neither is better than the other in every situation. Instead, they reflect different ways of thinking about how people relate to one another. One of the strengths of individualism is that it encourages personal freedom and creativity. People are free to explore their own interests, make their own choices, and express themselves. This can lead to innovation, as individuals are motivated to think outside the box and find new solutions. For example, in individualist cultures, people might start their own businesses or pursue artistic careers, even if it means taking big risks. The focus on personal responsibility also means people are often encouraged to work hard and succeed on their own. But individualism can have downsides too. When people focus too much on their own needs, it can lead to isolation or a lack of community support. For example, someone who prioritizes their career might find themselves feeling lonely if they don't maintain close relationships with family or friends. In some cases, individualism can also lead to competition that feels unhealthy, where people are so focused on being the best that they forget to work together. Collectivism has its own strengths. It emphasizes teamwork, loyalty, and the idea that people should look out for one another. In collectivist cultures, relationships are often very strong because people spend a lot of time helping their families, friends, and communities. For example, in a collectivist society, people might come together to celebrate festivals or support someone in need. This focus on the group can create a strong sense of belonging and purpose. However, collectivism can also have drawbacks. When the group's needs always come first, individuals might feel pressured to give up their own dreams or preferences. For example, someone in a collectivist culture might feel they can't pursue a career they love because their family expects them to take on a different role. In extreme cases, collectivism can lead to conformity, where people feel they have to act or think in a certain way to fit in, even if it doesn't align with their true selves. These two ways of thinking don't just apply to cultures, they also show up in everyday situations. Imagine a workplace. In an individualist workplace, employees might be rewarded for their personal performance. Promotions might go to people who stand out and achieve the most. In a collectivist workplace, the focus might be on teamwork and cooperation. Success might be measured by how well the whole team does, not just one person. In families, the balance between individualism and collectivism can look very different depending on the culture. In an individualist family, a young adult might decide to move out and live on their own as soon as they can, valuing their independence. In a collectivist family, they might stay with their parents longer, helping with household responsibilities and valuing the family unit over personal freedom. One way to understand these differences is to think about how people define success. In individualist cultures, success is often about personal achievement, getting a good job, earning money, or being recognized for your skills. In collectivist cultures, success might be about how much you've helped your family or how well you've contributed to your community. Both views have value, but they emphasize different things. It's also important to remember that no culture is completely individualist or completely collectivist. Most societies have a mix of both ideas. For example, a country might value individual freedom in areas like career choices, but emphasize collectivist ideas when it comes to family responsibilities. Similarly, individuals can blend these ideas in their own lives. Someone might pursue their own goals, but also make time to support their loved ones. The debate between individualism and collectivism isn't about picking one side, it's about finding balance. In some situations, focusing on personal needs makes sense. In others, prioritizing the group is more important. For example, if you're choosing a career, it might be important to follow your own dreams. But if a friend is in trouble, it's just as important to put their needs first and help them. Both individualism and collectivism offer lessons. Individualism reminds us to value personal freedom, take responsibility for our choices, and embrace creativity. Collectivism teaches us the importance of community, teamwork, and caring for one another. By understanding both perspectives, we can find ways to balance our own needs with the needs of those around us. At its core, this debate is about how we live together as people. It challenges us to think about what we owe to ourselves and what we owe to others. By exploring these ideas, we can learn to create a world where both individuals and communities can thrive. The debate between tradition and progress is about balancing the old with the new. On one side, tradition values the customs, practices, and beliefs that have been passed down through generations. On the other, progress focuses on change, innovation, and moving forward. Both ideas are important, but they sometimes clash, leaving people to wonder which should take priority. Tradition is about keeping things the same. It holds on to practices that have worked in the past, giving people a sense of stability and identity. Traditions can be as simple as celebrating a holiday in a certain way, or as complex as following cultural or religious rituals. For many, traditions provide a link to their ancestors and a way to connect with their heritage. For example, wearing traditional clothing during a wedding or gathering with family for a holiday meal are ways people honor their past. Tradition also creates a sense of belonging. When people take part in shared customs, they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. It can build strong ties within families, communities, and cultures. For instance, a town festival that happens every year can bring people together, reminding them of shared values and history. Progress, on the other hand, is about moving forward and finding better ways to do things. It focuses on improvement, whether that's through technology, ideas, or ways of living. Progress often questions old ways of thinking, asking whether they still make sense in the modern world. For example, progress might mean developing new medical treatments or creating laws that promote equality and fairness. Progress brings benefits by solving problems that traditions might not address. It's the reason we have electricity, vaccines, and faster ways to travel. Progress also encourages people to think critically and imagine new possibilities. For example, questioning old social norms has led to more rights for women, greater acceptance of diverse cultures, and changes in how people approach education. But the clash between tradition and progress often happens when one side feels threatened by the other. People who value tradition might see progress as disrespectful or risky, worrying that change could weaken the bonds that hold communities together. On the other hand, people who focus on progress might see tradition as outdated or limiting, believing it prevents society from evolving. Let's look at an example. Imagine a small town where farming has been the way of life for generations. Families pass down their farming techniques, and the community values hard work and the land. But then, a company introduces new farming technology that could make work easier and crops grow faster. Some people in the town might welcome this as progress, excited about the possibilities. Others might worry that using machines will take away the skills and traditions that have defined their way of life. This tension also appears in how people celebrate traditions in a changing world. For instance, some cultures have traditional clothing or festivals that have been part of their identity for centuries. As the world becomes more connected, people might start blending these traditions with modern styles or new customs. For some, this mix feels like progress, showing how cultures can adapt. For others, it feels like losing something important. In families, the balance between tradition and progress can create challenges too. Parents might want to pass on their customs and values, while younger generations might want to do things differently. For example, a family might have a tradition of cooking certain dishes during holidays, but younger members might prefer to try new recipes or celebrate in other ways. Finding a way to honor the past while embracing new ideas can be tricky but rewarding. One of the strengths of tradition is that it offers guidance. When people don't know what to do, they can look to traditions for answers. For example, traditional practices often include ways to celebrate life events like weddings or funerals, giving people a sense of structure and meaning during important times. Traditions also often carry wisdom from the past, like old recipes or farming techniques that have stood the test of time. But tradition isn't perfect. Sometimes traditions hold on to ideas or practices that no longer make sense. For example, traditions that exclude certain groups of people or enforce unfair roles might feel outdated or harmful in a modern, more inclusive society. In these cases, progress steps in to question and improve. Progress has its challenges too. While it often brings great advancements, it can also create uncertainty or unintended consequences. For instance, new technologies can make life easier, but they can also lead to problems like environmental damage or social isolation. Progress that moves too fast can leave some people feeling left behind, especially if they don't have the resources to keep up. The debate between tradition and progress isn't about choosing one over the other. It's about finding balance. Traditions remind us of where we come from and help us feel connected to others. Progress helps us adapt to the present and build a better future. The challenge is to honor the wisdom of the past while staying open to new ideas. For example, a community might celebrate its history with traditional festivals while also embracing modern technology to promote the event or make it more accessible. A family might keep old recipes alive but try new variations that reflect modern tastes. These approaches show how tradition and progress can work together instead of against each other. At its core, this debate is about how we grow while staying grounded. Traditions give us roots, helping us remember who we are and what we value. Progress gives us wings, allowing us to imagine and create something better. By respecting both, we can build a world that honors the past and embraces the future. The debate between globalization and nationalism is about how people view their connection to the world versus their loyalty to their own country. Globalization focuses on bringing people, economies, and cultures closer together, creating a more connected world. Nationalism emphasizes pride in one's country, protecting its interests and preserving its unique identity. Both ideas have strong points, but they can also come into conflict. Globalization is about breaking down barriers. It's the process of countries and people becoming more interconnected through trade, communication, and travel. For example, when you buy a smartphone, it might be designed in one country, assembled in another, and use parts made in several others. This kind of global cooperation allows businesses to grow, new ideas to spread, and people to experience goods and cultures from around the world. One of the biggest benefits of globalization is economic growth. By trading with other countries, businesses can reach more customers and create more jobs. Consumers also benefit because they have access to a wider variety of products at lower prices. For example, fruits like bananas or avocados, which might not grow in your country, are often available year-round thanks to global trade. Globalization also helps ideas and cultures spread. The internet has made it easier than ever for people to connect across borders. Music, movies, food, and fashion from one country can quickly become popular in another. This cultural exchange can lead to greater understanding and appreciation between people from different parts of the world. But globalization isn't perfect. One of its downsides is that it can lead to inequality. While some people and businesses thrive in a global economy, others struggle. For example, small local businesses might find it hard to compete with big international companies. Jobs can also be outsourced to other countries, leaving workers in one place without opportunities. This has made some people feel left behind by globalization. Globalization can also lead to a loss of cultural identity. When international trends dominate, smaller or more traditional cultures might feel overshadowed. For example, local languages, customs, or art forms can sometimes be replaced by global ones, which can make people worry about losing what makes their culture unique. Nationalism, on the other hand, is about focusing on your own country. It's the belief that a nation should look out for its own people first and protect its traditions, values, and interests. Nationalism often encourages pride in your country's history and achievements. For example, celebrating national holidays, promoting local industries, or supporting homegrown products are ways people express nationalism. One strength of nationalism is that it can create unity. When people feel connected to their country, they might work together to solve problems or achieve goals. For example, a nation rebuilding after a natural disaster might draw strength from its people's shared identity and determination. Nationalism can also protect local cultures and industries. By focusing on what makes a country unique, nationalism helps preserve traditions and values that might otherwise be lost in a globalized world. For example, a government might support local farmers or artists to keep traditional practices alive. But nationalism has its challenges too. When taken to extremes, it can lead to isolation or conflict. If a country focuses too much on itself, it might cut off trade or cooperation with others, which can hurt its economy or limit access to important resources. Extreme nationalism can also lead to tension between countries, as each one puts its own interests ahead of working together. For example, if countries compete too aggressively for resources like oil or water, it can lead to disputes or even wars. Nationalism can also make it harder for nations to address global issues like climate change, which require cooperation across borders. The tension between globalization and nationalism often comes down to priorities. Globalization emphasizes the benefits of working together and sharing resources, while nationalism emphasizes protecting what's yours. For example, in trade agreements, globalization focuses on creating rules that benefit many countries, but nationalism might prioritize policies that protect local jobs and industries. This debate is also visible in immigration. Globalization encourages the free movement of people, with workers and students crossing borders to seek new opportunities. Nationalism, however, might push back, arguing that immigration should be limited to protect jobs and resources for the country's own citizens. Both sides raise important points, and finding a balance can be challenging. Even in culture, this tension is clear. Globalization promotes the idea that cultures can mix and learn from one another, creating a rich, shared experience. Nationalism, however, might emphasize preserving traditions and keeping outside influences at bay. For example, while global music or fashion trends might bring people together, they can also make some feel like their own traditions are being forgotten. It's important to remember that globalization and nationalism are not entirely opposites. A country can embrace elements of globalization while still valuing its national identity. For example, a nation might participate in international trade and share its culture with the world, while also celebrating its own traditions and protecting local industries. The key is finding a balance that works for both the country and the global community. This balance can be seen in things like fair trade agreements, which aim to create global connections while protecting workers and the environment. It can also be seen in cultural events, like international film festivals, where countries share their stories while still highlighting their unique voices. At its core, the debate between globalization and nationalism is about how people see themselves in the world. Globalization reminds us that we are all connected and can learn from one another. It shows us the value of working together to solve problems and create opportunities. Nationalism reminds us of the importance of local communities, traditions, and the need to take care of our own people. By understanding both perspectives, we can build a world where countries cooperate and connect while still honoring their unique identities. Globalization and nationalism don't have to be enemies. They can work together to create a future that values both the global and the local. This balance isn't always easy to achieve, but by listening to both sides, we can find ways to move forward that benefit everyone. The debate between equality and equity is about how we create fairness in society. These two ideas are closely related, but they are not the same. Understanding the difference is important when thinking about justice, opportunities, and how to help people succeed. Equality means treating everyone the same. It's the idea that everyone should have the same rights, opportunities, and resources, regardless of who they are. For example, in a classroom, equality might mean that every student gets the same textbook and has access to the same lessons. It's about fairness in the sense that everyone gets the same treatment. Equity, on the other hand, focuses on giving people what they need to succeed. It's the idea that fairness sometimes requires different treatment because people start from different places or face different challenges. Using the classroom example, equity might mean giving extra help to students who struggle with reading or providing tools like a hearing aid to a student with hearing loss. It's about recognizing that some people need more support to reach the same outcome. The difference between equality and equity often comes down to recognizing differences in people's circumstances. Imagine a race where everyone starts at the same point, but one runner has a sprained ankle. Equality would mean giving everyone the same chance to compete, but it wouldn't address the fact that the injured runner is at a disadvantage. Equity would mean giving the injured runner extra time or support to level the playing field. One of the strengths of equality is that it's easy to understand and feels fair on the surface. Treating everyone the same seems like the right thing to do, especially when it comes to laws, rules, and opportunities. For example, equality is important in areas like voting rights, where everyone should have the same ability to participate regardless of their background. But equality doesn't always lead to fairness. If people face different challenges or barriers, treating them all the same might not help them equally. For example, giving the same tools to someone who already has an advantage and to someone who doesn't might actually widen the gap between them. This is where equity comes in. Equity recognizes that fairness sometimes means giving more to those who need it most. It's about understanding that not everyone starts from the same place. For example, in healthcare, equity might mean providing more resources to communities that face higher rates of illness or less access to doctors. In education, equity might involve giving extra funding to schools in low-income neighborhoods to ensure all students have the chance to succeed. However, equity can be harder to implement because it requires looking at people's individual needs and deciding how to distribute resources. Some people worry that focusing on equity can feel unfair, especially if they don't understand why certain groups are receiving extra support. For example, if a workplace program offers additional training opportunities to underrepresented groups, some employees might feel left out, even if the goal is to create a more balanced and fair workplace. This tension between equality and equity often shows up in discussions about policies and programs. For example, consider a scholarship program. Equality would mean giving everyone the chance to apply and judging all applicants by the same criteria. Equity, however, might mean prioritizing students from disadvantaged backgrounds who face more obstacles to attending college. Both approaches aim to be fair, but they focus on fairness in different ways. Another way to think about this is to imagine a community park. Equality would mean giving every neighborhood the same size park. But if some neighborhoods already have large parks and others don't have any, equality might not feel fair. Equity would mean giving more resources to the neighborhoods without parks, ensuring that everyone has access to green spaces. The debate between equality and equity isn't about choosing one over the other. It's about understanding when each is most appropriate. In some situations, equality works well. For example, everyone should have the same legal rights, like the right to vote or the right to free speech. In other situations, equity is necessary to address imbalances and ensure that everyone can achieve the same outcomes. It's also important to recognize that equality and equity can work together. For example, in education, equality might mean providing every student with access to quality teachers and schools. Equity would go a step further, offering additional support to students who need it, like tutoring programs or access to technology. By combining equality and equity, we can create systems that are fair for everyone. This debate also raises bigger questions about how we define fairness. Is fairness about giving everyone the same opportunities, or is it about ensuring that everyone reaches the same outcomes? Different people might have different answers, depending on their experiences and values. At its core, the conversation about equality versus equity challenges us to think deeply about fairness and justice. It reminds us that while treating everyone the same feels simple and fair, real fairness often requires understanding the unique challenges people face. By recognizing these differences, we can create a world where everyone has the chance to succeed, no matter where they start. The debate between freedom and security is about balancing two important needs. Freedom is the ability to make choices and live without unnecessary restrictions. Security is the protection from harm, danger, or threats. Both are essential, but they can sometimes come into conflict. How much freedom should we give up to feel safe, and how much security should we sacrifice to stay free? This is a question that affects individuals, communities, and entire nations. Freedom is about personal choice and independence. It means being able to decide how to live your life without interference from others, including the government. For example, freedom allows you to choose your job, express your opinions, and move around without restriction. It's a core value in many societies because it gives people control over their own lives. But freedom also comes with risks. When everyone has the freedom to make their own choices, it means people can also choose to act in harmful ways. For instance, if there were no traffic laws, everyone could drive however they wanted, but it would likely lead to accidents and chaos. This is where security comes in. Security is about protection. It ensures that people are safe from harm and that society can function peacefully. Security measures can include laws, rules, and systems designed to keep order. For example, requiring seatbelts in cars or setting speed limits are security measures aimed at reducing the risk of injury or death. These rules limit freedom in small ways, but they make life safer for everyone. The challenge is that increasing security often means reducing freedom. For example, installing surveillance cameras in public places can help prevent crime, but it might also make people feel like their privacy is being invaded. On the other hand, prioritizing freedom too much can lead to situations where safety is compromised. For example, if people were free to carry weapons without restrictions, it could lead to more violence and make others feel unsafe. This tension is particularly visible in how governments respond to threats like terrorism or crime. After major events that threaten public safety, governments often introduce new security measures, such as stricter airport screenings or surveillance programs. While these measures can make people feel safer, they also raise questions about privacy and freedom. For example, should phone calls or emails be monitored to catch criminals? Some people argue that this is necessary for security, while others feel it violates their right to privacy. The balance between freedom and security also appears in smaller, everyday decisions. For example, think about schools. A school might implement strict rules to keep students safe, like requiring IDs or banning certain items. These rules might limit students' freedom, but they can create an environment where everyone feels more secure. The question is how strict the rules should be and whether they create unnecessary restrictions. One of the strengths of freedom is that it allows people to be creative, independent, and responsible. When people are free, they can explore new ideas, take risks, and make their own decisions. For example, freedom of speech allows people to express their opinions, even if those opinions are unpopular. This kind of freedom encourages innovation and progress, as people are not afraid to think differently or challenge old ideas. But freedom without security can feel uncertain and unsafe. For example, in communities with weak law enforcement, people might worry about their safety and avoid going out or taking risks. Security provides a foundation that allows freedom to thrive. When people feel safe, they are more likely to use their freedom in positive ways. At the same time, too much focus on security can lead to problems. When governments or organizations prioritize security above all else, it can lead to strict rules that limit people's rights. For example, if a government censors the internet to prevent harmful content, it might also block access to important information or limit free speech. In extreme cases, this kind of control can lead to authoritarianism, where leaders use security as an excuse to restrict freedoms. The balance between freedom and security depends on the context. In times of crisis, like during a war or a natural disaster, people might accept more restrictions on freedom to ensure their safety. For example, during a pandemic, governments might impose lockdowns or require vaccinations to protect public health. These measures limit personal freedom, but can save lives. The question is how much restriction is necessary and how long it should last. In everyday life, people also make trade-offs between freedom and security. For example, when you lock your doors at night, you're giving up the freedom to leave your home open in exchange for the security of knowing you're protected from intruders. Similarly, when you agree to share personal information online to use certain services, you're trading some privacy for convenience and access. Finding the right balance between freedom and security is not easy, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It often depends on the values of a society and the specific challenges it faces. Some people lean more toward freedom, believing that individuals should have as much control over their lives as possible. Others prioritize security, believing that safety and order are more important than complete freedom. This debate also raises questions about trust. People are more likely to accept security measures if they trust that those in charge are using them responsibly. For example, if a government is transparent about why it's introducing a new law and how it will protect people's rights, citizens are more likely to support it. Without trust, even well-intentioned security measures can feel oppressive. Ultimately, the balance between freedom and security is about creating a society where people feel both safe and empowered. Freedom allows individuals to pursue their goals, make choices, and express themselves. Security provides the stability and protection that make it possible to enjoy those freedoms. By carefully considering the trade-offs and listening to different perspectives, we can find ways to ensure that both freedom and security are valued and protected. The debate between optimism and pessimism is about how people view the world and their future. Optimism is the belief that things will work out for the best, even when times are tough. Pessimism, on the other hand, focuses on the idea that things are likely to go wrong or that problems will be hard to solve. Both perspectives affect how people approach life, handle challenges, and interact with others. Optimism is often described as looking on the bright side. Optimistic people tend to see opportunities in difficult situations and believe that their efforts can lead to positive outcomes. For example, if someone loses their job, an optimist might see it as a chance to explore a new career path or learn new skills. Optimism can be a powerful motivator because it encourages people to take action and keep trying, even when things seem uncertain. Optimism also has benefits for mental and physical health. Studies have shown that optimistic people are more likely to recover from illnesses, cope with stress, and build strong relationships. This might be because optimism helps people focus on solutions rather than problems. For instance, an optimist dealing with a tough project at work might focus on breaking it into smaller, manageable tasks instead of worrying about how hard it seems. However, optimism isn't always perfect. Sometimes, being overly optimistic can lead to ignoring risks or underestimating challenges. For example, if someone assumes everything will work out without planning or preparation, they might find themselves unprepared when things don't go as expected. This is sometimes called blind optimism, a kind of unrealistic positivity that can create problems instead of solving them. Pessimism, by contrast, is about expecting the worst or focusing on potential problems. Pessimists often think about what could go wrong and try to prepare for it. This can be helpful in certain situations, like planning for emergencies or managing risks. For example, a pessimist planning a trip might double-check all the details, pack extra supplies, and think through what to do if things go wrong. Their careful approach can prevent problems that a more carefree person might overlook. Pessimism can also help people manage expectations. By expecting less, pessimists might feel less disappointed when things don't go well. For instance, if someone is unsure about doing well on an exam, a pessimist might prepare themselves for a low grade. If they do better than expected, they might feel pleasantly surprised rather than let down. But pessimism has its downsides too. Focusing too much on what might go wrong can lead to stress, anxiety, or even a sense of hopelessness. Pessimistic people might avoid taking risks or trying new things because they assume it won't work out. For example, someone who doubts their abilities might not apply for a job they're interested in, missing out on a potential opportunity. Over time, this kind of thinking can limit personal growth and happiness. The truth is, most people aren't purely optimistic or pessimistic. They fall somewhere in between. People might feel optimistic about some areas of life, like their relationships, but pessimistic about others, like their finances. How someone views a situation often depends on their experiences, personality, and the specific challenges they face. The balance between optimism and pessimism is important. Optimism helps people stay hopeful and motivated, while pessimism encourages caution and preparation. Together, these perspectives can help people approach life with a mix of confidence and realism. For example, someone starting a new business might use optimism to dream big and take risks, but rely on pessimism to carefully plan for potential problems. Imagine a team working on a big project. The optimists on the team might focus on the exciting possibilities and push everyone to aim high. The pessimists might point out potential risks and suggest ways to avoid them. Together, the team benefits from both perspectives, creating a plan that is both ambitious and practical. In personal relationships, optimism and pessimism also play a role. Optimists might bring positivity and encouragement to a friendship or partnership, helping others feel supported. Pessimists might offer a more grounded perspective, helping their loved ones think carefully about important decisions. When these perspectives balance each other, they can create stronger, more supportive relationships. It's also worth noting that both optimism and pessimism can change over time. People who experience success might become more optimistic, while those who face repeated setbacks might lean toward pessimism. Life experiences, health, and even the people we spend time with can influence how we see the world. For example, spending time with optimistic friends might encourage someone to adopt a more positive outlook, while being surrounded by negativity might make someone more pessimistic. Both optimism and pessimism offer valuable lessons. Optimism teaches us to look for the good in situations, believe in our ability to overcome challenges, and keep moving forward. It reminds us that even in tough times, there's often a way to improve things. Pessimism, on the other hand, teaches us to be cautious, to prepare for setbacks, and to think carefully about risks. It reminds us that not everything will go smoothly and that it's important to have a backup plan. The key is to find a balance that works for you. Too much optimism can make you unprepared, while too much pessimism can hold you back. By combining the best of both perspectives, you can approach life with hope while staying grounded in reality. Whether you lean more toward optimism or pessimism, both have something valuable to offer. Together, they help us navigate life's challenges and find a path forward. Cognitive dissonance is a term used to describe the uncomfortable feeling we get when our thoughts, beliefs, or actions don't match. It's a kind of mental tension that happens when we hold two conflicting ideas at the same time, or when what we do doesn't align with what we believe. This idea helps explain why people sometimes act in ways that don't make sense, or why they struggle with certain decisions. For example, imagine someone who believes in healthy eating, but regularly eats junk food. On one hand, they value good nutrition and know it's important for their health. On the other hand, they might love the taste of fast food or find it convenient. These two conflicting ideas, I want to eat healthy and I'm eating junk food, create cognitive dissonance, a kind of mental discomfort. Cognitive dissonance happens to everyone. It's part of being human because we often face situations where our beliefs, actions, or values don't line up perfectly. When this happens, we feel uneasy, and we usually try to reduce that discomfort. How we do this can tell us a lot about how we think and behave. One way people deal with cognitive dissonance is by changing their behavior to match their beliefs. In the example of the person who wants to eat healthy, they might start cooking more meals at home and avoiding fast food. By making their actions align with their values, they reduce the tension they feel. Another way to handle dissonance is by changing beliefs to fit actions. This can happen when it's hard to change the behavior. For instance, the same person might tell themselves, eating junk food isn't that bad if I balance it with exercise. By adjusting their belief, they make their actions seem less contradictory. A third way people reduce cognitive dissonance is by adding new thoughts or justifications. This means finding reasons to explain the inconsistency. For example, they might think, I'm really busy, so fast food is the best option right now. These justifications help ease the discomfort without requiring a big change. Cognitive dissonance can show up in many parts of life, from small everyday choices to big decisions. For example, imagine buying an expensive car. If someone spends a lot of money, but later starts to doubt whether the car was worth it, they might feel cognitive dissonance. To reduce it, they might focus on the car's good features, like its safety or style, and convince themselves it was a great purchase. It can also happen in relationships. For instance, if someone values honesty but catches themselves lying to a friend, they might feel dissonance. To cope, they might justify the lie by thinking, it was a small lie, and I didn't want to hurt their feelings. These kinds of internal conflicts are common and show how we try to protect our self-image. Cognitive dissonance can even play a role in social and political beliefs. When people encounter information that challenges their opinions, it can create discomfort. For example, if someone strongly supports a politician but learns about a mistake that politician made, they might feel dissonance. To resolve it, they might downplay the mistake or focus on the politician's positive actions instead. This phenomenon isn't always negative. It can also motivate positive change. For instance, when people realize their actions don't align with their values, it can push them to make better choices. Someone who cares about the environment but notices they aren't recycling might feel dissonance. That uncomfortable feeling could encourage them to start recycling or reduce waste, helping them align their actions with their beliefs. However, cognitive dissonance can also lead to stubbornness. Sometimes, instead of changing behavior or beliefs, people dig in and reject evidence that conflicts with their views. This can make it harder to grow or learn. For example, if someone refuses to accept a fact because it challenges their worldview, they might avoid the discomfort of dissonance, but miss an opportunity to expand their understanding. Psychologists first studied cognitive dissonance in the 1950s. One famous experiment involved participants doing a boring task and then being asked to tell others it was enjoyable. Some were paid a small amount, while others were paid more. Surprisingly, those who were paid less were more likely to convince themselves the task was fun. Why? Because they felt more dissonance. Telling someone the task was fun didn't align with their actual experience, and the small payment didn't justify the lie. To resolve this, they changed their belief about the task to reduce the discomfort. Understanding cognitive dissonance helps us see why people sometimes make unexpected or illogical choices. It also shows us how much we value consistency in our thoughts and actions. When our internal world feels out of sync, we naturally want to fix it, even if it means changing what we believe, how we act, or how we see the world. This idea is useful not just in psychology, but also in everyday life. It can help us understand why we feel conflicted and give us tools to deal with that feeling. For example, if you notice cognitive dissonance in yourself, it's an opportunity to reflect. Ask yourself, are my actions matching my values? If not, what can I do to align them? By being honest with ourselves, we can grow and make choices that feel right. Cognitive dissonance also teaches us to be patient with others. When someone's behavior seems inconsistent, it might be because they're struggling with dissonance themselves. Recognizing this can help us approach situations with empathy and understanding. In the end, cognitive dissonance is a normal part of life. It's a sign that we care about being consistent and true to ourselves. While it can be uncomfortable, it's also a powerful motivator for change and self-improvement. By understanding how it works, we can use it to make better decisions and live in a way that feels more balanced and authentic. The debate between rationality and emotion is about how we make decisions and navigate life. Rationality relies on logic, reason, and careful thinking to guide choices. Emotion, on the other hand, is driven by feelings, instincts, and gut reactions. Both play important roles in our lives, but they can sometimes pull us in different directions. Rationality is about thinking clearly and making decisions based on facts and evidence. It's the process of weighing pros and cons, analyzing options, and coming to a logical conclusion. For example, if you're deciding which car to buy, a rational approach might involve comparing prices, fuel efficiency, and safety ratings. Rationality helps us avoid impulsive decisions and focus on long-term benefits. One of the strengths of rationality is that it keeps us grounded. By relying on facts and logic, we can avoid being swayed by temporary feelings or biases. This is especially helpful in complex situations, like planning a budget or solving a problem at work. Rational thinking allows us to step back, consider the bigger picture, and make choices that are practical and effective. However, rationality has its limits. Life isn't always neat and logical, and not every decision can be reduced to facts and numbers. Sometimes, trying to overanalyze a situation can lead to paralysis by analysis, where we get stuck weighing every option and struggle to make a choice. For example, someone planning a vacation might spend so much time comparing hotels and flights that they miss out on booking a great deal. Emotion, on the other hand, is about how we feel and respond to the world around us. Emotions like love, fear, joy, and anger influence how we act and how we connect with others. They can motivate us to take action, warn us of danger, or guide us toward what feels right. For example, if you feel a strong sense of excitement about a new opportunity, that emotion might push you to take a chance and try something new. One of the strengths of emotion is that it adds meaning to our decisions. It helps us connect to our values, build relationships, and experience life in a deeper way. For example, choosing a career path isn't just about salary or job security. It's also about what makes you feel fulfilled and happy. Emotions help us make choices that align with who we are and what matters to us. But emotion can also lead to impulsive or irrational decisions. When we act purely on feelings, we might overlook important facts or make choices we later regret. For instance, if someone gets angry during an argument, they might say something hurtful without thinking about the consequences. Emotional reactions can be powerful, but they aren't always the best guide for long-term decisions. The tension between rationality and emotion is something we face every day. Imagine a situation where you're deciding whether to move to a new city for a job. Rationality might tell you to take the job because it pays well and offers career growth. Emotion, however, might make you hesitate because you feel nervous about leaving your friends and family behind. Both perspectives are valid, and the challenge is finding a balance between them. In relationships, this balance is especially important. Rationality helps us communicate clearly, resolve conflicts, and make decisions that are fair and thoughtful. Emotion, on the other hand, helps us connect with others, show empathy, and express love. For example, when a friend is going through a tough time, rationality might tell you to offer advice, while emotion might prompt you to simply listen and provide comfort. Both approaches can be valuable, depending on the situation. Rationality and emotion also play a role in how we handle risks. Rational thinking might lead us to take calculated risks, like investing in a new business after carefully reviewing the market. Emotion, however, might push us to take risks that feel exciting or meaningful, even if they aren't entirely logical. For example, someone might decide to pursue a dream career even if it's risky, driven by a deep passion or desire for fulfillment. Some people lean more toward rationality, while others rely more on emotion. Rational thinkers might prioritize planning, analysis, and objectivity, while emotional thinkers might focus on intuition, empathy, and personal connections. Neither approach is right or wrong. Each has strengths and weaknesses, and both are essential for making well-rounded decisions. The key is to find a balance between the two. Rationality provides structure and clarity, helping us make decisions that are practical and effective. Emotion provides meaning and motivation, helping us connect with our values and the people around us. When we combine the two, we can make choices that are both smart and authentic. For example, let's say you're deciding whether to help a friend move. Rationally, you might think about how much time it will take or whether it will disrupt your schedule. Emotionally, you might feel a strong sense of loyalty and want to be there for your friend. By considering both perspectives, you might decide to help, but set boundaries to ensure it doesn't interfere with your other responsibilities. Another example could be deciding how to spend your savings. Rationality might tell you to invest the money for long-term growth, while emotion might urge you to use it for something meaningful, like a dream vacation. By balancing these views, you might choose to invest most of the money while setting aside a portion for something you'll enjoy now. Understanding the roles of rationality and emotion helps us navigate life with greater awareness. It reminds us that neither logic nor feelings alone can guide every decision. Instead, they work together, each offering valuable insights. Rationality keeps us focused on facts and long-term goals, while emotion helps us stay true to our values and connect with others. In the end, rationality and emotion aren't enemies, they're partners. By embracing both, we can make decisions that are thoughtful, meaningful, and balanced, creating a life that feels both well-planned and deeply fulfilling. The contrast between self-perception and external perception is about how we see ourselves versus how others see us. Self-perception is our internal view, how we understand our personality, actions, and identity. External perception is how others interpret and judge us based on what they observe. While these two perspectives often overlap, they can sometimes be very different, leading to misunderstandings or self-reflection. Self-perception is shaped by our thoughts, feelings, and experiences. It's how we answer questions like, "Who am I?" or "What kind of person do I want to be?" For example, someone might see themselves as kind, hardworking, or creative because they value those qualities and strive to embody them. Our self-perception influences the choices we make, the goals we set, and how we interact with others. External perception, on the other hand, is how other people see us. This can depend on things like our actions, words, appearance, or the impressions we leave. For example, someone who is quiet at a party might be seen as shy, even if they see themselves as thoughtful or observant. External perception is shaped by others' experiences, assumptions, and biases, which means it isn't always accurate. The tension between these two perspectives can create challenges. Imagine a person who sees themselves as generous because they often help friends in need. But if they forget to show up for an important event, others might see them as unreliable. The person's self-perception as generous might clash with the external perception of being unreliable, causing confusion or frustration. One reason for this gap is that self-perception is based on what we know about ourselves, including our intentions and inner thoughts. External perception, however, is based only on what others can see or hear. For example, you might feel nervous during a presentation but think you're hiding it well. Others, however, might notice small signs like shaky hands or a hesitant voice and assume you're unprepared. This difference in perspective can lead to misunderstandings. Another factor is that people often present themselves in ways that influence how others see them. This is called impression management. For instance, someone might dress professionally for a job interview to appear confident and competent even if they're feeling nervous inside. While external perception can be shaped by these efforts, it's not always entirely within our control. Social media adds another layer to this dynamic. Online, people often curate their lives to show only the best moments. This creates an external perception of success or happiness, even if the reality is more complicated. For example, someone might post photos of vacations and celebrations, but avoid sharing struggles or challenges. This can create a gap between how they see themselves and how others perceive them. The tension between self-perception and external perception isn't always negative. In fact, it can lead to growth and self-awareness. When we learn how others see us, it can help us reflect on whether our actions align with our intentions. For example, if a teacher sees themselves as supportive but hears feedback from students that they're hard to approach, this external perception can be a chance to make positive changes. At the same time, external perception isn't always fair or accurate. People's judgments can be influenced by stereotypes, assumptions, or incomplete information. For example, someone might be judged unfairly based on their appearance or the first impression they make, rather than their true character. In these cases, self-perception becomes a source of strength, helping people stay confident and grounded despite others' opinions. Self-perception also has its challenges. People can sometimes be too hard on themselves, seeing only their flaws or mistakes. This negative self-view might not match how others see them. For example, someone might think they're not smart enough because they struggled in one area, while their friends or coworkers see them as highly capable in other ways. On the other hand, people can also overestimate their abilities or qualities, which can create problems when external perception doesn't match their self-view. Balancing these two perspectives is important for building self-awareness and healthy relationships. Self-perception helps us understand who we are and what we value. External perception gives us feedback about how our actions affect others and how we fit into the world around us. By considering both, we can grow and adapt while staying true to ourselves. For instance, in a workplace, someone might see themselves as a team player, always willing to help. But if their coworkers feel they dominate conversations or don't listen enough, that external perception is valuable feedback. The person can use it to adjust their behavior, like listening more actively, while still holding on to their self-view as someone who values teamwork. In relationships, understanding these perspectives is key. Imagine a person who sees themselves as caring because they often give advice to their friends. However, if their friends feel overwhelmed or misunderstood, the external perception might suggest they need to focus more on listening than giving advice. Balancing self-perception with external feedback can strengthen relationships by helping people communicate and understand each other better. This balance also helps with personal growth. If someone wants to improve in a certain area, they can start by reflecting on their self-perception and comparing it with external feedback. For example, if they see themselves as a good communicator but receive feedback that they interrupt others, they can work on aligning their actions with their self-view. At its core, the tension between self-perception and external perception reminds us that identity is complex. We are a mix of who we think we are and how others see us. By being open to feedback while staying true to our values, we can bridge the gap between these perspectives and build a more authentic and fulfilling sense of self. The contrast between hope and despair is about how we face challenges and uncertainties in life. Hope is the belief that things can get better, even when times are hard. It's about holding on to the possibility of positive outcomes and finding the strength to keep going. Despair, on the other hand, is the feeling that things will never improve. It's the sense of being stuck in a situation with no way out, leading to feelings of sadness, helplessness, or defeat. Hope is a powerful force. It gives us the courage to try again after failure, to set goals even when the path seems unclear, and to imagine a better future. For example, someone recovering from an illness might hold on to hope that they will regain their strength and return to the activities they love. This belief can motivate them to follow their treatment plan, stay positive, and keep pushing forward. Hope often comes from a sense of possibility. Even in difficult circumstances, hope reminds us that change is always possible, whether it's through our own actions, the help of others, or time. It can also come from small moments of progress, like finding a solution to a problem or receiving support from a friend. These glimpses of positivity can reignite hope, even when things feel overwhelming. Despair, however, is the opposite. It's the feeling that nothing will ever get better, no matter what we do. When someone feels despair, they might lose the motivation to try or feel like giving up entirely. For instance, someone struggling with a long-term financial problem might feel stuck, believing there's no way to improve their situation. This mindset can make it hard to take action, even when solutions are available. Despair often comes from feeling overwhelmed or powerless. When problems seem too big or last too long, it's easy to lose hope. For example, someone facing repeated setbacks might start to believe that success isn't possible, even if they are making progress in small ways. Despair can also be fueled by isolation, as people who feel alone in their struggles may believe they have no one to turn to for help. The balance between hope and despair often depends on how we interpret our experiences and the support we have around us. People who feel hopeful tend to focus on what they can control, even in tough situations. For example, a student who struggles with a subject might stay hopeful by breaking their work into smaller steps and celebrating small victories, like mastering one concept at a time. In contrast, someone feeling despair might focus on what's going wrong or on how far they have to go, which can make the situation feel even worse. One of the strengths of hope is that it encourages resilience. When people believe that better days are ahead, they're more likely to keep trying, even after setbacks. Hope doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It means facing challenges with the belief that improvement is possible. For example, someone working through a difficult relationship might use hope to focus on ways to rebuild trust and communication. Despair, while often seen as negative, can also be a signal that something needs to change. When someone feels despair, it's a sign that they're struggling with something deeply important to them. For example, someone feeling hopeless about their job might realize that they need to explore a new career path. Despair can push people to reflect, reach out for help, or take a different approach to their challenges. The tension between hope and despair can also be seen in how people view the future. Hope focuses on possibilities and opportunities, while despair focuses on obstacles and limitations. For example, during a global crisis, hope might inspire people to come together and find solutions, while despair might lead to feelings of helplessness or apathy. Both perspectives are natural, but hope often provides the energy needed to move forward. Hope doesn't mean ignoring the reality of a situation. It means finding reasons to keep going despite the difficulties. For example, someone grieving a loss might feel both sadness and hope at the same time. They might honor their pain while also holding on to the belief that healing is possible and that life can still bring joy in the future. At the same time, it's important to acknowledge despair when it happens. Pretending everything is fine or forcing optimism can sometimes make things worse. Instead, recognizing feelings of despair allows us to address them and seek support. For example, someone feeling hopeless about a project might benefit from talking to a mentor or friend who can offer encouragement or new ideas. Both hope and despair are part of the human experience, and it's normal to feel both at different times. The key is to find ways to move through despair and reconnect with hope. This might mean focusing on small steps, seeking help from others, or reminding yourself of past challenges you've overcome. Even when hope feels far away, it's often closer than it seems. In relationships, hope and despair can also play a role. Hope helps people build trust, believe in each other, and work through conflicts. Despair, on the other hand, might arise when trust is broken or when challenges feel too big to overcome. Open communication, empathy, and patience can help people move from despair back to hope, strengthening their connection in the process. Ultimately, hope and despair remind us of the power of perspective. Hope encourages us to see opportunities even in tough times and to keep going when things are hard. Despair challenges us to reflect on what we need and to seek new paths or support. Together, these emotions shape how we face life's challenges and remind us that even in moments of darkness, hope can light the way forward. The debate between immanence and transcendence is about how we understand the nature of existence, the divine, and the universe. These two ideas describe different ways of thinking about what is ultimate or sacred. Immanence focuses on what is present, close, and within the world. Transcendence, on the other hand, points to what is beyond, infinite, or above human experience. Both perspectives offer unique insights into how we view life and our place in it. Immanence is the idea that the divine or ultimate reality is present in everything around us. It suggests that the sacred is woven into the fabric of the world, accessible in everyday life. For example, someone who believes in immanence might see nature as a reflection of the divine, finding beauty and meaning in a sunrise, a forest, or the ocean. They might feel a deep connection to the world and see the sacred in people, animals, and even small ordinary moments. Immanence often emphasizes closeness and interconnectedness. It's about the idea that the divine or ultimate reality isn't distant or separate, but is instead present in every part of existence. This perspective can lead to a sense of wonder and gratitude for life as it is, encouraging people to find meaning and spirituality in their daily experiences. For instance, someone who practices mindfulness or meditation might feel a sense of immanence when they focus on their breath, becoming aware of the present moment and its profound simplicity. Transcendence, by contrast, is the idea that the divine or ultimate reality exists beyond the physical world and human understanding. It suggests that there is something greater than what we can see, touch, or experience directly, something infinite, eternal, and beyond our reach. For example, in many religious traditions, transcendence refers to a god or higher power that exists outside the limits of time and space, beyond the material universe. Transcendence often emphasizes awe and mystery. It invites us to think about what lies beyond our immediate experience, whether it's the vastness of the cosmos, the meaning of life, or the possibility of an afterlife. For example, someone who looks up at the stars might feel a sense of transcendence, reflecting on how small and temporary human life is compared to the endless expanse of the universe. This perspective can inspire humility and a sense of connection to something far greater than ourselves. The tension between immanence and transcendence can be seen in how different people or cultures approach spirituality. Some traditions focus on the immanent, emphasizing practices that bring people closer to the sacred in their daily lives. For example, certain forms of Buddhism and Hinduism highlight the idea that enlightenment or divine truth is already within us and can be realized through meditation or self-awareness. Other traditions lean more toward transcendence, emphasizing the separation between the divine and the world. In these views, the sacred is something to strive toward, something that exists beyond human experience and requires faith or devotion to approach. For instance, in Christianity, God is often seen as transcendent, existing beyond the physical world, yet also immanent in the sense of being present through creation and human relationships. Both perspectives have strengths and challenges. Immanence offers a sense of closeness and intimacy with the world. It reminds us that meaning and spirituality can be found in everyday life, in the people we love, and in the natural world. However, focusing too much on immanence might lead to overlooking the bigger picture or the mysteries that transcend our immediate experience. Transcendence, on the other hand, inspires a sense of wonder and pushes us to think beyond ourselves. It encourages us to explore the unknown and to seek something greater than what we can see or understand. However, it can also feel distant or abstract, making it harder to connect with on a personal level. These two ideas aren't necessarily opposites. They can complement each other. For example, someone might experience immanence by finding meaning in nature or art, while also feeling a sense of transcendence when contemplating the vastness of the universe or the idea of eternity. Many spiritual practices and philosophies try to balance these perspectives, seeing the divine as both present in the world and beyond it. In everyday life, the balance between immanence and transcendence can shape how we see the world and our place in it. Immanence encourages us to appreciate the present moment, to connect with others, and to find beauty in the ordinary. Transcendence, meanwhile, reminds us to dream, to wonder, and to strive for something beyond what we already know. For example, an artist might feel immanence in the process of creating, a deep connection to their work and the materials they use. At the same time, they might feel transcendence in the inspiration that guides them, a sense of reaching towards something greater than themselves. Similarly, someone hiking in a forest might feel immanence in the sounds of the trees and the crunch of leaves underfoot, while also feeling transcendence in the vastness of the landscape and the sense of being part of something much bigger. Immanence and transcendence also influence how we think about relationships. Immanence invites us to focus on the here and now, to cherish the moments we share with loved ones, and to build meaningful connections. Transcendence encourages us to think about the lasting impact of those relationships, how they shape our lives, our values, and the legacy we leave behind. Ultimately, the debate between immanence and transcendence isn't about choosing one over the other. Both offer valuable ways of understanding life, spirituality, and meaning. Immanence teaches us to find the sacred in the everyday, to see the divine in the details of life. Transcendence challenges us to look beyond, to dream of what lies ahead, and to reach for something greater. By exploring both perspectives, we can enrich our understanding of the world and our place in it. Whether through the closeness of immanence or the mystery of transcendence, we are reminded that life is full of depth, wonder, and possibility. The debate between unity and duality explores how we understand the world and ourselves. Unity is the idea that everything is connected, forming a single, harmonious whole. It suggests that differences are just parts of a greater oneness. Duality, on the other hand, focuses on opposites and contrasts, like light and dark, good and bad, or mind and body. It views the world as made up of distinct parts that interact and shape one another. Unity emphasizes connection and togetherness. It's the belief that beneath all the differences we see, there is a shared essence or a common thread that ties everything together. For example, in nature, unity might be seen in the way ecosystems work. Trees, animals, soil, and water all rely on one another to create a balanced system. Even though each part is different, they all contribute to the same whole. Unity can also apply to people and relationships. It reminds us that despite our differences, we share common experiences, emotions, and needs. For instance, people from different cultures might speak different languages or follow different traditions, but they all experience joy, love, and pain. Unity encourages us to focus on what connects us rather than what separates us. Duality, on the other hand, highlights differences and opposites. It's the idea that contrasts are fundamental to how the world works. For example, we understand light because we know darkness, and we appreciate rest because we experience activity. Duality shows us that opposites are often necessary for balance and understanding. In everyday life, duality is everywhere. Think about emotions like happiness and sadness. One feels good and the other feels difficult, but they both play important roles. Without sadness, we might not fully appreciate happiness. Without challenges, achievements might not feel as rewarding. Duality teaches us that opposites aren't just separate. They often depend on each other to make sense. The tension between unity and duality can be seen in how people view the world. Someone focused on unity might see humanity as one large family, where borders and differences are less important than the shared goal of living peacefully. Someone focused on duality might see the world as full of contrasts, like conflict and harmony, progress and setbacks that need to be understood and addressed individually. Both perspectives have strengths. Unity helps us see the big picture. It encourages compassion, cooperation, and a sense of belonging. For example, unity might inspire efforts to address global issues like climate change, reminding us that the health of the planet affects everyone. It can also bring comfort, as it suggests that we're all part of something greater than ourselves. Duality, however, helps us appreciate complexity. It shows us that differences are not only real, but also valuable. For instance, duality is important in decision-making. By considering opposing viewpoints, we can make more balanced and thoughtful choices. Duality also helps us understand conflict and growth. Often, progress comes from the interaction of opposing forces. The relationship between unity and duality isn't necessarily about choosing one over the other. In fact, they often work together. Unity reminds us of our shared connections, while duality helps us navigate the differences that make those connections meaningful. For example, in a family, unity might mean seeing the family as a single unit, bound by love and support. Duality might mean recognizing that each family member has their own personality, strengths, and challenges, which contribute to the whole in unique ways. In philosophy and spirituality, these ideas appear often. Some traditions emphasize unity, teaching that all of existence is one. For example, in some forms of meditation, the goal is to dissolve the sense of separation and feel at one with the universe. Other traditions focus on duality, exploring the interplay of opposites like light and shadow, action and rest, or life and death. These perspectives help people understand the balance and complexity of existence. In practical terms, unity and duality can influence how we solve problems or address conflicts. A unity-based approach might focus on shared goals, like building a community or finding common ground in a disagreement. A duality-based approach might look at the specific differences and work to balance them, like addressing the needs of opposing sides in a negotiation. For example, consider a workplace where employees have different opinions on how to handle a project. A unity perspective might emphasize the team's shared goal and encourage collaboration. A duality perspective might focus on the opposing viewpoints, finding ways to address both and create a better solution. By combining these perspectives, the team can work toward a balanced and effective outcome. Unity and duality also show up in art, science, and relationships. In art, unity might be seen in the overall harmony of a painting, where all the elements come together to create a single impression. Duality might be found in the contrasts within the artwork, like light and shadow or bold and soft colors, which add depth and interest. In science, unity appears in theories that aim to explain how everything in the universe is connected, while duality appears in the contrasting forces, like electricity's positive and negative charges, that make systems work. In relationships, unity encourages people to focus on their shared values and mutual support. Duality helps people respect and celebrate their differences, like having distinct interests or approaches to solving problems. Both are important for creating a balanced, healthy connection. Ultimately, unity and duality offer two ways of understanding the world. Unity reminds us of our connections and shared purpose, encouraging us to work together and see the big picture. Duality highlights the value of differences and contrasts, helping us appreciate complexity and navigate challenges. By embracing both perspectives, we can find balance, deepen our understanding, and live in harmony with the world and each other. The tension between faith and doubt explores how we deal with belief, uncertainty, and the search for truth. Faith is the trust or confidence in something, often without complete evidence. It might be belief in a higher power, in other people, or in ourselves. Doubt, on the other hand, is the questioning or uncertainty about those beliefs. It challenges us to think critically and consider whether what we believe is true or reliable. Both faith and doubt play important roles in how we understand the world and our place in it. Faith is a powerful force. It gives people a sense of purpose and direction, especially in uncertain times. For example, someone might have faith that their hard work will lead to success, even if they don't see immediate results. Faith provides strength and resilience, helping people keep going when things get tough. It's often a source of hope, reminding us that better days may be ahead. Faith isn't just about religion, though it plays a significant role there. In a spiritual sense, faith might mean trusting in a divine plan or believing in something greater than ourselves. For example, many religious traditions encourage people to have faith in God, even when they don't fully understand why certain things happen. This kind of faith can bring comfort and a sense of connection to something eternal. In everyday life, faith also shows up in relationships, goals, and personal growth. For instance, when we trust a friend, we have faith in their honesty and loyalty. When we set goals, we have faith in our ability to achieve them. Faith allows us to take risks, try new things, and believe that our efforts will pay off, even if the outcome isn't guaranteed. Doubt, however, is equally important. It's the process of questioning, examining, and challenging what we believe. While faith provides certainty and confidence, doubt encourages curiosity and growth. For example, if someone doubts their current career path, it might lead them to explore other options and discover a more fulfilling direction. Doubt pushes us to look deeper, seek evidence, and make sure our beliefs are well-founded. Doubt can also protect us from blind faith, which can sometimes lead to problems. For instance, believing in something without questioning it might result in poor decisions or missed opportunities. Doubt helps us avoid this by encouraging us to think critically. For example, before investing in a risky opportunity, doubt might lead someone to research it carefully and weigh the pros and cons. The relationship between faith and doubt isn't necessarily a conflict. It can be a balance. Faith provides the confidence to take action, while doubt ensures that our actions are thoughtful and informed. For example, a scientist might have faith in their ability to solve a problem, but they also rely on doubt to question their assumptions and test their ideas. This combination of trust and skepticism helps them arrive at better answers. In personal beliefs, faith and doubt often go hand in hand. Someone might believe in a higher power, but still have moments of doubt, wondering why bad things happen or whether their prayers are heard. These questions don't necessarily weaken faith. They can deepen it by prompting reflection and a stronger connection to what they believe. Doubt, in this sense, becomes a tool for growth rather than a threat to belief. Doubt can also lead to change, which is sometimes necessary for personal development. For example, if someone doubts a tradition or belief they were taught as a child, it might lead them to explore new perspectives and form their own understanding. This process can feel uncomfortable, but it's an important part of discovering what truly resonates with us. At the same time, too much doubt can be paralyzing. If we question everything without finding answers or taking action, it can lead to uncertainty and fear. This is where faith becomes essential. It gives us the courage to move forward, even when we don't have all the answers. For example, someone starting a new business might doubt whether it will succeed, but faith in their vision and abilities helps them take the first steps. In relationships, faith and doubt also play a role. Trust, a form of faith, is essential for strong connections. We believe in the reliability and goodwill of the people we care about, but doubt can arise when trust is broken or when there's uncertainty about someone's intentions. Navigating this balance is key to maintaining healthy relationships. Doubt can lead to important conversations or changes, while faith allows us to forgive, rebuild, and move forward. The tension between faith and doubt is also present in big life questions, like the meaning of life or what happens after death. These are questions that often have no clear answers, which is why both faith and doubt are important. Faith gives us a sense of purpose and hope, while doubt encourages us to keep searching for understanding. Together, they help us explore these mysteries in a meaningful way. Neither faith nor doubt is inherently better. They serve different purposes. Faith provides stability, confidence, and a sense of direction. Doubt encourages reflection, curiosity, and growth. The key is finding a balance that allows us to move forward while remaining open to new ideas and possibilities. For example, a student preparing for a difficult exam might have faith in their ability to succeed, which motivates them to study. At the same time, a healthy dose of doubt might push them to double-check their work and prepare for challenges they might not have anticipated. By combining faith and doubt, they can approach the situation with both confidence and care. In the end, faith and doubt are not enemies. They are partners in our journey to understand the world and ourselves. Faith reminds us to trust in the path we're on, while doubt keeps us questioning and growing. Together, they help us navigate life's uncertainties with courage and curiosity, leading us to deeper understanding and a more meaningful existence. The contrast between life and death is one of the most profound and universal subjects we face as humans. Life is about growth, experience, and connection. Everything that happens between birth and the moment we take our last breath. Death, on the other hand, is the end of those experiences, the point where the physical body stops functioning. While life and death might seem like opposites, they are deeply connected and often shape how we view our existence. Life is vibrant and ever-changing. It's marked by growth from the moment a child takes their first breath to the experiences that shape a person over a lifetime. Life is about making choices, building relationships, and finding meaning in the moments we live. It's what we celebrate in birthdays, achievements, and milestones. The experiences we have, joy, love, challenges, and even pain, are all part of what makes life rich and meaningful. Life is also about potential. Each day brings opportunities to learn, grow, and connect with others. It's the small things, like sharing a meal with a loved one, watching the sunrise, or laughing with a friend, that make life feel full. Even during difficult times, life often offers moments of hope and resilience that remind us of its value. Death, on the other hand, is the inevitable conclusion of life. It's something every living being will face, yet it remains one of the biggest mysteries. For many, death is a source of fear or sadness because it represents the unknown and the loss of connection with the world and the people we love. It's the end of physical life, the point where the body ceases to function and the experiences of this world come to an end. Despite this, death is also a natural part of the cycle of existence. Just as seasons change and life renews itself, death creates space for new growth and beginnings. In nature, the death of one plant can nourish the soil for another. In human life, death often brings people together to reflect on what truly matters, helping them appreciate the time they have and the relationships they cherish. The tension between life and death shapes how we live. Knowing that life is finite gives it urgency and meaning. If we lived forever, we might not feel the same drive to pursue our dreams, express our love, or make the most of our time. Death reminds us to value life, to savor its moments, and to prioritize what's most important. At the same time, the idea of death can feel overwhelming or unfair, especially when it comes unexpectedly or to someone we love. It's natural to grieve, to feel the pain of loss, and to wonder about what happens after life ends. Different cultures and beliefs offer various answers to these questions, from ideas of an afterlife to the belief that death is simply a return to nature. Life and death are also deeply intertwined in how we create meaning. Many people find purpose in the idea of leaving a legacy, something that continues after they're gone. This could be raising a family, creating art, building a community, or simply being kind to others. These acts connect life and death by ensuring that something of us lives on, even when we're no longer here. The relationship between life and death is also reflected in how we approach challenges and change. Every ending can feel like a small death, whether it's the end of a job, a relationship, or a phase of life. But these endings often lead to new beginnings, reminding us that life and death aren't just about physical existence. They're also about cycles of growth and renewal. In moments of deep reflection, many people see death not only as an end, but also as a teacher. It encourages us to ask questions like, what do I want to leave behind? Or, how can I make the most of the time I have? These questions push us to live more intentionally, focusing on the things that truly matter. Life and death also shape how we connect with others. Relationships often gain their depth and importance because we know they won't last forever. This awareness makes us treasure the time we spend with loved ones, express our feelings, and create memories that endure. It's why we celebrate life at funerals and memorials, honoring not just the end, but the impact someone's life had on others. For some, the idea of death brings fear or sadness, while for others, it brings a sense of peace or acceptance. These feelings often depend on personal beliefs, experiences, and cultural perspectives. Some see death as a transition to another existence or a return to the universe. Others see it as a reminder to live fully in the here and now, knowing that every moment counts. Both life and death teach us something about balance. Life is full of possibilities, but it's also unpredictable. Death is certain, but its timing is unknown. Together they remind us to live with awareness and gratitude, appreciating the beauty of the present while accepting the inevitability of change. Ultimately, life and death are not just opposites. They are partners in the story of existence. Life is about being present, embracing growth, and finding joy in the journey. Death is about endings, but it's also about creating space for reflection, renewal, and the legacies we leave behind. By understanding and accepting both, we can live with greater depth, purpose, and connection, making the most of every moment we're given. Human fallibility and divine perfection explore two opposing concepts that shape how we understand ourselves, our place in the world, and our relationship with higher ideals. Human fallibility reminds us of our limitations, mistakes, and imperfections, while divine perfection represents an ultimate standard of flawlessness, often tied to a higher power or ideal. This tension can be both humbling and motivating, shaping how we grow, seek meaning, and navigate the challenges of life. Human fallibility is an unavoidable part of being human. People make mistakes, misjudge situations, and act in ways that don't always align with their values. For example, someone might break a promise to a friend, not out of malice, but because of forgetfulness or competing responsibilities. These mistakes are part of our nature. They remind us that no one is perfect and that learning and growth come from facing our shortcomings. This fallibility often stems from the fact that humans are influenced by emotions, limited knowledge, and circumstances. Even with the best intentions, we sometimes make poor choices. A parent trying to do their best for their child might accidentally say something hurtful, or a leader making a decision for their community might overlook important details. These moments of failure can feel discouraging, but they are also opportunities to reflect and improve. On the other hand, divine perfection represents the idea of an ultimate, unchanging ideal. In many religious traditions, the divine is described as all-knowing, all-powerful, and perfectly good. This concept of perfection serves as a guide or standard against which humans measure themselves. For example, a person might look to their faith's teachings about kindness or justice as an example of how to live, even if they know they'll never fully embody those ideals. Divine perfection doesn't always have to mean belief in a deity. For some, it might represent abstract concepts like truth, love, or justice, higher values that feel beyond human reach but are worth striving toward. These ideals give people something to aim for, reminding them that even though they're imperfect, they can still grow and contribute to something greater. The tension between human fallibility and divine perfection can be both challenging and inspiring. On one hand, recognizing our imperfections can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, or inadequacy, especially when we compare ourselves to a seemingly unreachable standard. For instance, someone might feel overwhelmed trying to live up to their religious teachings or societal expectations, believing they're constantly falling short. On the other hand, this tension can also push us to grow. Knowing that we're not perfect doesn't mean we can't improve. In fact, striving toward higher ideals, even if we never fully achieve them, gives life meaning. For example, someone might work to become more compassionate, even if they occasionally lose their temper. The effort to align with higher values, even imperfectly, is part of what makes life fulfilling. Human fallibility is often a source of connection. Recognizing our shared imperfections can foster empathy and understanding. When someone admits to a mistake or failure, it often makes them more relatable and trustworthy, as it shows humility. For instance, a leader who acknowledges their errors might earn more respect than one who pretends to be infallible. Similarly, in personal relationships, admitting faults and seeking forgiveness can strengthen bonds. At the same time, the concept of divine perfection offers a sense of stability and guidance. In a world filled with uncertainty and change, the idea of something perfect and unchanging provides comfort and hope. It reminds people that even if they make mistakes, there's a higher standard to turn to for direction. For example, Someone struggling to make an ethical decision might find clarity by reflecting on spiritual teachings or values they hold as sacred. This tension also shows up in how people approach self-improvement. Those who focus too much on perfection might become overly critical of themselves or others, leading to feelings of inadequacy or frustration. For example, someone might set unrealistic goals, believing they need to be flawless to be worthy of love or success. On the other hand, embracing human fallibility doesn't mean giving up on growth. It means recognizing that failure is part of the process, and that progress often comes from making mistakes and learning from them. In spirituality, this balance plays an important role. Many religious teachings acknowledge human imperfection while offering a path to connect with the divine. For instance, concepts like grace, forgiveness, and redemption provide a way for people to reconcile their fallibility with the idea of divine perfection. They remind us that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love, guidance, or purpose. In everyday life, the interplay between fallibility and perfection shapes how we relate to others. In parenting, for example, parents often strive to provide the best for their children, while recognizing they'll make mistakes along the way. A parent might aim to be patient and understanding, but sometimes lose their temper. By admitting their imperfections and making an effort to improve, they model resilience and accountability for their children. Similarly, in work or creative pursuits, the idea of perfection can motivate people to aim high, but it can also create unnecessary pressure. For instance, an artist might feel paralyzed by the need to create something flawless, missing the opportunity to grow through experimentation and failure. Balancing these perspectives allows people to strive for excellence while accepting that mistakes are part of the journey. The tension between human fallibility and divine perfection also raises questions about how we define success and fulfillment. Is it about reaching an ideal, or is it about the effort we put into growing and learning? Many would argue that it's the journey, not the destination, that matters most. By striving toward perfection while accepting our imperfections, we can find meaning in the process of becoming better versions of ourselves. Ultimately, human fallibility and divine perfection are two sides of the same coin. Our imperfections remind us that we are human, flawed, but capable of growth. The idea of divine perfection gives us something to aspire to, a source of guidance and inspiration. Together, they shape how we understand ourselves and the world, encouraging us to embrace both humility and hope as we navigate life's challenges. Through this balance, we can find purpose, connection, and a deeper sense of what it means to be human. The idea of work-life balance is about finding harmony between the demands of your job and the time and energy you spend on personal life. Work includes tasks like meeting deadlines, attending meetings, and achieving professional goals. Life, on the other hand, includes time for family, friends, hobbies, relaxation, and personal growth. Striking a balance between the two is important for overall well-being, but it's not always easy. Work is a big part of life for most people. It provides income, structure, and often a sense of purpose. For some, their career is a passion or a source of pride. For others, work is primarily about supporting themselves and their loved ones. In both cases, work can take up a lot of time and energy, leaving less room for personal activities. Life outside of work is just as important. It's where we build relationships, pursue hobbies, take care of our health, and find joy in simple things. Time spent with family, exercising, reading, or simply relaxing helps recharge our energy and gives life meaning beyond professional achievements. Without this time, people can feel burned out or disconnected from what truly matters. The challenge is that work and life often compete for attention. Long hours at work can leave little time for family or personal interests. Similarly, personal responsibilities, like caring for a child or a parent, can make it harder to focus on work. When one side dominates, the imbalance can lead to stress, fatigue, or dissatisfaction. Work-life balance is about finding a middle ground. It doesn't mean dividing your time perfectly between work and personal life. It means prioritizing what matters most at any given moment. For example, during a busy period at work, you might spend extra hours on a project, but later you could make time to relax or take a vacation to recharge. One key to achieving work-life balance is setting boundaries. This could mean leaving work at a certain time each day or not checking emails after hours. For example, someone who values family dinners might make it a rule to put their phone away during that time. Boundaries help create space for personal life while also keeping work manageable. Another important part of work-life balance is flexibility. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes one side needs more attention than the other. For instance, a parent might need to take time off work to care for a sick child, or an employee might need to adjust their schedule to attend a family event. Flexibility allows people to adapt to changing needs without feeling overwhelmed. Employers also play a role in supporting work-life balance. Companies that offer flexible hours, remote work options, or generous leave policies make it easier for employees to balance their responsibilities. For example, a company that allows parents to work from home when needed shows that it values their personal lives as much as their professional contributions. When employees feel supported, they're often more motivated and productive. However, work-life balance isn't just about reducing hours at work. It's also about using time wisely. For example, someone who works fewer hours but spends all their free time on chores might still feel unbalanced. It's important to make time for things that bring joy and relaxation, whether it's spending time with loved ones, pursuing a hobby, or simply unwinding. Cultural expectations can also affect work-life balance. In some cultures, long hours and constant availability are seen as signs of dedication, making it harder to prioritize personal life. In others, there's a greater emphasis on leisure, with shorter work weeks or longer vacations. Understanding and challenging cultural norms can help individuals and organizations create healthier expectations. Technology is another factor that complicates work-life balance. While tools like email and video calls make it easier to work remotely, they also blur the line between work and personal time. For instance, it's easy to feel pressured to respond to work messages during evenings or weekends. Setting clear rules like turning off notifications after a certain time can help maintain boundaries. Achieving work-life balance looks different for everyone because people have different needs and priorities. For one person, it might mean working fewer hours to spend more time with their family. For another, it might mean finding a job that aligns with their personal values and passions. The key is to figure out what balance means for you and make adjustments as needed. It's also important to recognize that balance isn't a one-time achievement. It's an ongoing process. Life changes, and so do our priorities. For example, someone early in their career might focus more on building their skills and reputation, while someone later in life might prioritize spending time with loved ones or pursuing personal interests. Adjusting to these changes is part of maintaining balance. Work-life balance isn't just about avoiding stress. It's about creating a fulfilling life. When we make time for both work and personal life, we're more likely to feel satisfied, energized, and connected. It's about recognizing that both work and life matter and finding ways to make space for each. In the end, work-life balance is about choices. It's about deciding what's most important, setting boundaries to protect your time, and making space for the things that bring meaning and joy. By being mindful of your priorities and staying flexible, you can create a life that feels balanced, rewarding, and true to who you are. The contrast between overthinking and intuition is about how we make decisions and approach situations. Overthinking relies on careful analysis, questioning, and weighing every detail. Intuition, on the other hand, is about trusting your gut, a sense of knowing or acting without needing to think things through step by step. Both approaches have their strengths and weaknesses, and finding a balance between them is key to making better decisions. Overthinking happens when we focus on a problem or decision too much, often going over the same details repeatedly. It's like being stuck in a mental loop where we're afraid of missing something or making the wrong choice. For example, someone trying to decide between two job offers might analyze every aspect, salary, location, work-life balance, so intensely that they feel paralyzed, unable to make a choice at all. Overthinking can be helpful in certain situations. It allows us to gather information, consider different perspectives, and anticipate potential outcomes. For example, before buying a house, overthinking might lead someone to research the neighborhood, inspect the property carefully, and weigh the financial risks. This level of analysis can prevent impulsive decisions and help avoid costly mistakes. However, overthinking can also be a trap. When we overthink, we often focus too much on details that may not matter in the long run. This can lead to stress, anxiety, and indecision. For example, someone planning a party might overthink every small detail, like the exact color of the decorations or the perfect playlist, so much that they lose sight of the bigger goal, having fun and connecting with guests. Overthinking can make small problems feel bigger than they are and leave us feeling stuck. Intuition, on the other hand, is the ability to make decisions quickly and effortlessly, based on a sense of what feels right. It's often described as a gut feeling or a sudden insight that doesn't come from deliberate reasoning. For example, someone meeting a stranger might immediately feel a sense of trust or caution without being able to explain why. Intuition relies on experience, instinct, and subconscious knowledge that we may not even realize we have. One of the strengths of intuition is its speed. In situations where time is limited, intuition allows us to act without overthinking. For example, a firefighter responding to an emergency might rely on intuition to quickly assess a dangerous situation and decide the safest course of action. Intuition can also be helpful in creative processes, like brainstorming ideas or solving problems in unconventional ways. Intuition often feels natural because it taps into patterns and experiences we've learned over time. For instance, a seasoned chef might instinctively know how to balance flavors in a dish without needing to measure ingredients. Similarly, a teacher might sense when a student is struggling, even if the student hasn't said anything directly. But intuition isn't always reliable. It can be influenced by biases, emotions, or incomplete information. For example, someone might have a gut feeling that a certain investment is a good idea, only to realize later that they didn't consider important facts. Intuition can sometimes lead to snap judgments that are based more on assumptions than reality. The tension between overthinking and intuition often arises when we're faced with important decisions. Should we rely on careful analysis or trust our instincts? The answer depends on the situation. In complex decisions that require careful planning, like choosing a career path or making a financial investment, overthinking might be more helpful. In fast-moving or emotional situations, like responding to an emergency or making a creative choice, intuition might be the better guide. The key is finding a balance between the two. Overthinking and intuition can work together to help us make better decisions. For example, someone deciding whether to accept a new job might start by listening to their intuition. Does the opportunity feel exciting or right for them? Then they can use overthinking to carefully analyze the pros and cons, ensuring they've considered all the practical factors. It's also important to recognize when we're leaning too far in one direction. If overthinking is causing stress or making it hard to move forward, it might be time to pause and listen to your intuition. For instance, if you've been agonizing over whether to book a vacation, your intuition might remind you that you've been wanting to travel for a long time and it's worth saying yes. Similarly, if intuition is leading you to act impulsively, it might be helpful to slow down and think things through. For example, if you feel an urge to buy something expensive, overthinking might help you consider whether it's truly worth the cost or if you're acting on a fleeting feeling. Understanding the balance between overthinking and intuition can also improve relationships. Overthinking might make us second-guess our words or actions, worrying about how others perceive us. Intuition, on the other hand, can help us connect more authentically by trusting our natural instincts in social situations. For example, if you sense that a friend is upset, your intuition might guide you to check in with them, while overthinking might cause you to hesitate, wondering if you're reading the situation correctly. In the end, both overthinking and intuition have their place. Overthinking helps us plan, analyze, and make thoughtful choices, while intuition allows us to act quickly and trust our inner wisdom. By learning to recognize when each approach is most useful, we can make decisions with more confidence and ease. Ultimately, overthinking and intuition are not opposites. they are tools we can use together. Overthinking provides the structure and logic we need to navigate complex situations, while intuition offers the spontaneity and insight that come from our deeper instincts. By balancing the two, we can approach life's challenges with both careful thought and natural confidence, making decisions that feel right for both our minds and our hearts. The contrast between technology and nature explores two forces that shape our lives in profound ways. Technology represents human innovation, tools, and systems designed to solve problems and make life easier. Nature, on the other hand, is the world as it exists without human interference. Forests, oceans, animals, and the rhythms of the natural environment. Both technology and nature are essential to our existence, but they often seem to be at odds. Technology is about progress and problem solving. It has transformed how we live, work, and communicate. From electricity and medicine to smartphones and the internet, technology has made life more convenient and connected. For example, video calls allow people to stay in touch across continents, and advances in healthcare have extended life expectancy and improved quality of life. One of technology's strengths is its ability to solve problems quickly and efficiently. It offers solutions to challenges that would be difficult or impossible to address without it. For instance, satellites help predict weather patterns, allowing communities to prepare for natural disasters, while renewable energy technologies aim to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and combat climate change. However, technology has its drawbacks. While it can bring convenience and innovation, it can also lead to overdependence, environmental damage, and a sense of disconnection from the natural world. For example, the extraction of resources for electronics contributes to habitat destruction, and excessive screen time can impact mental health and reduce time spent outdoors. Nature, by contrast, is about balance, simplicity, and connection to the earth. It provides us with the essentials of life: clean air, water, food, and a stable climate. Nature also nurtures our well-being in ways that technology often cannot. For example, spending time in a forest or by the ocean can reduce stress, boost mood, and improve physical health. These benefits come from simply being present in the natural world. Nature also teaches us about harmony and resilience. Ecosystems work through interconnected relationships where every part plays a role. For example, forests rely on trees, plants, animals, fungi, and microbes to maintain balance and support life. This interconnectedness reminds us that we are part of a larger system and that our actions have consequences for the environment. But nature can also be unpredictable and challenging. Natural disasters like hurricanes, droughts, and earthquakes remind us that nature has its own power, often beyond human control. This unpredictability is one reason technology has developed, to help us adapt to and protect ourselves from nature's extremes. The relationship between technology and nature often feels like a struggle between opposing forces. Technology can disrupt nature, while nature often pushes back against technological overreach. For example, deforestation to make way for urban development or agriculture disrupts ecosystems, leading to loss of biodiversity. At the same time, nature asserts itself through rising sea levels, shifting weather patterns, or species adapting to changing environments. Yet, technology and nature don't have to be in conflict. They can complement each other. Many modern technologies aim to work in harmony with nature rather than against it. For example, green energy solutions like wind turbines and solar panels harness natural resources to create sustainable power. Conservation technologies like drones for monitoring wildlife or tools for cleaning up oceans use innovation to protect and restore the environment. The balance between technology and nature also shows up in our personal lives. For example, people might use fitness apps to track outdoor runs or install smart thermostats to save energy at home. These tools merge technology with nature-focused goals, making it easier to live in a way that respects both. At the same time, it's important to step back from technology and reconnect with nature. While smartphones and social media keep us connected to the digital world, they can also pull us away from the natural one. Taking time to unplug and spend time outdoors can help restore a sense of balance, offering peace and perspective that technology can't replicate. Cultural attitudes toward technology and nature also shape how we approach this relationship. In some cultures, technological progress is seen as the ultimate goal, a way to master and improve the world. In others, there's a greater emphasis on living in harmony with nature, valuing traditional practices and sustainability over rapid innovation. Both perspectives have lessons to offer about how to navigate the balance between these forces. One way to bridge the gap is to think about how technology can enhance our relationship with nature rather than replace it. For example, apps that identify plants or birds can help people learn more about the natural world. Virtual reality can offer experiences of distant ecosystems, inspiring a greater appreciation for their beauty and the need to protect them. Ultimately, the tension between technology and nature is about finding balance. Technology represents human ingenuity and the drive to improve our lives, while nature reminds us of our roots, our limitations, and our dependence on the earth. Both are essential, and neither can be ignored. By using technology responsibly and staying connected to nature, we can create a world where these two forces work together. Whether it's through sustainable practices, eco-friendly innovation, or simply spending time outdoors, we can honor both the tools we've created and the natural world that sustains us. This balance isn't always easy to achieve, but it's vital for our health, happiness, and the future of the planet. The contrast between wealth and happiness is about understanding what truly makes life fulfilling. Wealth represents material possessions and financial resources, while happiness is about a sense of well-being, contentment, and joy. While wealth can contribute to happiness in some ways, the two are not the same, and pursuing one does not always guarantee the other. Wealth provides security and opportunity. It allows people to afford basic needs like food, shelter, healthcare, and education. Having enough money to cover these essentials can reduce stress and make life more comfortable. For example, someone who doesn't have to worry about paying their bills is more likely to feel relaxed and focused on other aspects of life. Wealth can also open doors to experiences that bring happiness, like traveling, pursuing hobbies, or spending time with loved ones. A person with financial stability might be able to take a dream vacation, invest in their passions, or spend more time with family because they don't have to work multiple jobs. However, wealth has its limits when it comes to happiness. Studies have shown that once people reach a certain level of financial security, enough to meet their needs and have some comfort, additional money doesn't necessarily make them happier. For example, someone with a modest but secure income might be just as happy as someone who earns millions if both have meaningful relationships, good health, and a sense of purpose. Happiness, on the other hand, is often about things money can't buy. Strong relationships, personal growth, a sense of purpose, and experiences that bring joy contribute more to long-term happiness than material possessions. For instance, spending quality time with loved ones or helping a friend in need can create feelings of connection and fulfillment that no amount of money can replace. One of the challenges in the wealth versus happiness debate is that society often equates success with wealth. People are encouraged to strive for higher salaries, bigger houses, or more possessions, thinking these will bring happiness. While achieving financial goals can provide a sense of accomplishment, it's not always enough to fill deeper emotional or spiritual needs. For example, someone might work long hours to afford a luxurious lifestyle, but feel lonely or disconnected because they don't have time for meaningful relationships. On the flip side, pursuing happiness without considering financial stability can also be challenging. For example, someone who chooses a low-paying job they love might struggle to cover basic needs, leading to stress that affects their overall well-being. In this sense, wealth and happiness are connected. It's hard to be truly happy if you're constantly worried about making ends meet. The tension between wealth and happiness is also influenced by how people use their resources. Studies suggest that spending money on experiences, like trips or activities with loved ones, tends to bring more happiness than buying material things. This is because experiences create lasting memories and strengthen connections, while the satisfaction of owning something new often fades over time. Generosity is another way wealth can contribute to happiness. Using money to help others, whether through charity, supporting a friend, or investing in community projects can create a sense of purpose and fulfillment. For example, someone who donates to a cause they care about might feel happier knowing they've made a positive impact. At the same time, happiness isn't just about external circumstances, it's also about mindset. Gratitude, for example, is a powerful contributor to happiness. Someone who appreciates what they have, regardless of their financial situation, is more likely to feel content. For instance, a person living modestly but grateful for their health, relationships, and experiences might feel happier than someone who is wealthy but constantly focused on what they lack. Wealth and happiness also play different roles in different cultures. In some places, material success is seen as a primary measure of happiness, while in others, community, relationships, or spiritual fulfillment take precedence. These cultural differences show that what makes people happy isn't universal. It depends on values, priorities, and personal perspectives. The relationship between wealth and happiness often comes down to balance. Money can provide the foundation for a happy life by offering security and opportunities, but it's not enough on its own. True happiness comes from a combination of factors, including relationships, purpose, health, and the way we view our lives. For example, a person who earns a comfortable income but spends time with loved ones, pursues meaningful goals, and takes care of their physical and mental health is likely to feel happier than someone who focuses solely on accumulating wealth. Similarly, someone who chooses a simpler lifestyle but prioritizes meaningful experiences and relationships can find deep happiness even without great financial resources. Ultimately, wealth and happiness are not enemies. They're tools we can use to create a fulfilling life. Wealth provides the means to meet needs and pursue opportunities, while happiness comes from how we live, connect, and find meaning. By focusing on what truly matters and using wealth as a resource rather than a goal in itself, we can create a life that feels both secure and deeply rewarding. The contrast between scarcity and abundance is about how we view resources, opportunities, and life itself. Scarcity is the belief that there's not enough, whether it's time, money, love, or success, and that we must compete or struggle to get what we need. Abundance, on the other hand, is the belief that there is plenty to go around and that opportunities and resources are not as limited as they might seem. These two mindsets shape how we approach challenges, relationships, and our overall sense of well-being. Scarcity often creates a sense of urgency or fear. It's the feeling that we're running out of time, money, or opportunities, and that if we don't act quickly, we'll lose out. For example, someone with a scarcity mindset about money might feel constant stress about saving every penny, even when they're financially secure. Scarcity can make us focus on what we don't have rather than appreciating what we do. This mindset can also lead to competition. If we believe there's not enough to go around, we may see others as rivals rather than collaborators. For example, in a workplace, a scarcity mindset might make employees hesitate to share knowledge or ideas because they're afraid someone else will take credit or get ahead. While competition can sometimes drive people to work harder, too much focus on scarcity can create stress, mistrust, and conflict. Abundance, on the other hand, is about seeing possibilities and trusting that there is enough for everyone. It's the belief that resources, opportunities, and success are not finite, and that sharing or giving doesn't mean losing. For example, someone with an abundance mindset might celebrate a coworker's promotion, believing it doesn't take away from their own chances for growth. Abundance encourages collaboration, generosity, and a sense of community. One of the strengths of an abundance mindset is that it opens doors to creativity and opportunity. Instead of focusing on limitations, it encourages people to think about what's possible. For example, an entrepreneur with an abundance mindset might view a competitive market as a chance to innovate rather than a reason to quit. By focusing on possibilities rather than obstacles, they're more likely to find success. Abundance also fosters gratitude. When we believe there's enough, we're more likely to appreciate what we have and share it with others. For instance, someone who feels abundant in their relationships might make more time for friends and family, knowing that love and connection grow stronger when shared. However, abundance doesn't mean ignoring reality or acting recklessly. Resources like time, money, and energy are limited, and it's important to manage them wisely. For example, someone with an abundance mindset about money might still budget carefully, understanding that abundance is about making the most of what they have, not wasting it. Similarly, abundance doesn't mean ignoring challenges. It means approaching them with confidence and creativity rather than fear. The tension between scarcity and abundance often comes down to perspective. Scarcity focuses on what's missing, while abundance focuses on what's possible. For example, if two people are competing for the same job, someone with a scarcity mindset might think, if they get it, I lose. Someone with an abundance mindset might think, if I don't get this job, there will be other opportunities. Scarcity and abundance also affect relationships. A scarcity mindset might make someone feel insecure or possessive, worrying that love or attention is limited. For instance, they might feel jealous if their partner spends time with friends, fearing there won't be enough love left for them. An abundance mindset, on the other hand, trusts that love grows when shared, allowing people to feel more secure and generous in their relationships. In organizations, scarcity and abundance can shape workplace culture. A company with a scarcity mindset might focus only on cutting costs or competing with rivals, leading to stress and burnout. A company with an abundance mindset might invest in employee development, collaboration, and innovation, trusting that these efforts will lead to long-term success. Scarcity and abundance also influence how we think about the world. For example, someone with a scarcity mindset about resources might believe that helping others means there will be less for themselves. Someone with an abundance mindset might focus on sustainable solutions, believing that by working together, we can create enough for everyone. Both scarcity and abundance have their place. Scarcity can sometimes help us focus, prioritize, and act with urgency. For example, if you're running out of time to meet a deadline, recognizing that time is limited can push you to work efficiently. But living in a constant state of scarcity can lead to stress, fear, and a narrow view of what's possible. Abundance, on the other hand, encourages hope, generosity, and creativity. It reminds us that even when resources are limited, there are ways to create more or make the most of what we have. For example, during difficult times, an abundance mindset might help someone find unexpected opportunities for growth or connection. The key is finding balance. Recognizing real limitations while cultivating a mindset of abundance can help us approach life with both practicality and optimism. For instance, someone saving for a big purchase might acknowledge the need to budget carefully, scarcity, while also feeling confident that their hard work will pay off and bring future opportunities, abundance. Ultimately, the choice between scarcity and abundance is about how we see the world and our place in it. Scarcity can make us feel anxious and competitive, while abundance encourages gratitude, generosity, and creativity. By shifting our focus from what's missing to what's possible, we can approach challenges with confidence, build stronger relationships, and live with a greater sense of fulfillment.